Order. Hoping I have my nose count right. Yes, I do.
Okay. You're
All
on.
right. Thank you very much, Sarah. All righty. I'd like to call the meeting of Tuesday. Uh, what year is this? Tuesday, March 18th, 2025 to order. Acting under the provisions of the Code of the Town of Barnstable, Chapters 112-1 through 112-7, the Historical Commission will hold a public hearing on the following applications. The following applications have been determined significant and referred for a public hearing. This meeting of the Barnstable Historical Commission is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Anyone else recording this meeting? I see none. Thank you.
We need a roll call, though.
I haven't got that far yet.
Oh, I'm
but
sorry.
I will. Sorry, Nancy. We ask that during the afternoon's proceedings, cell phones be turned off and conversations other than those before the commission take place outside this remote meeting. When an application is called, we ask the applicant and all interested parties and abutters to identify themselves. Lastly, as a best practice for meetings held remotely where we may not be able to visually identify who is speaking, we ask all commission members and participants to identify themselves before making any motion or comment. Online audience members wishing to participate during the public comment section of a hearing can use the raise hand button to notify the chair. Dial-in audience members wishing to participate during the public comment section of a hearing should press the *9 on their phone to notify the chair. All participants will be muted. You must be recognized by the chair to participate. All righty. For a roll call, please. Nancy Shoemaker.
Here.
Cheryl Powell, I believe, is not here. All righty. Jack Kay.
Here.
Thank you, Jack. Barbara DiBiase, I believe, is not here yet. We hope she will be here later. John Richmond.
Here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, John. Thank you. And Robert Frazee, I am definitely here. At least I hope I'm definitely here. It's my intention to be here. All righty. Our first order of business is a continued application. Thank you for the continuation from the previous event, by the way. This is for Kimberly Hunsaker, 353 Ocean Street, Hyannis, map 325, parcel 015, built 1846, partial demolition, construct addition of a porch and sunroom, update siding, trim windows, doors, and roof. First order of business is to open the public hearing. I would love a motion to do so, please, from one of my commissioners.
So moved, Nancy
And
Shoemaker.
a second.
Jack Kay, I'll second.
Thank you very much. And then a vote, roll call vote, since we're in Zoom. Nancy Shoemaker?
Here.
Aye.
Oh, aye. Sorry.
Thank you. Jack Kay?
Aye.
John Richmond?
Aye.
Thank you. Robert Frazee? Aye. We are officially in the public hearing. I would just like to ask the homeowners and representatives to make themselves available, and please provide any additional comments or information that you would like us to consider on this visit. I know you have submitted some additional materials, which I believe the commissioners have had an opportunity to see, and it would be great to have you explain and comment on them, please.
Hi, my name is Julio. We met, well, we was with you guys last month.
We met this way.
Yeah, exactly. We actually, I got a text from the two homeowners that they're having difficulty come back in. Whatever happened on the Zoom, they're not in. They said that they're still waiting for.
Well, Phil Tomatich is waiting. I'm here. Tim's here. But Phil Tomatich needs to be let in, please.
Yeah, I think that's the only person that we're missing now. I didn't even see that, Kim. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm
Kim.
just a little box.
I was starting to scour the little boxes myself, so. I don't know if there's a way to help Sarah know that there's a particular person for this hearing we're looking for.
Corey, you can do that. Yes.
And then the three people we already have.
I will not be letting anybody in.
No, we're not asking to let anybody in. We're
Zoom
just wondering if you can reach out to Sarah and ask her to let is it Phil? Is that correct?
Phil, yeah, Phil Tomatich.
Yeah, I believe Sarah can hear us, so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sure she's working on that right
You
now.
know, I'm sure she's working like wildfire on it, but um,
I think Phil will be okay if we start talking. So
you all right with that? Okay,
if
I'm
that's
sorry,
okay
Kim, but
with you
thank you.
guys. Go ahead, Tulio. You can.
Yes. So after last time we met, I believe the commission wanted to have a look at the plans with the board and bat added to the plans, so they had an idea of how it looked like or how it'd be applied. So I have uploaded those. I asked Erica to upload them actually, and she has uploaded them as requested. I also uploaded an example of a house that has that vertical siding, as well as some additional historical comments or additional historical information on the house compared to how it was in the beginning, how it has changed through the years, and how it has been maintained by Kim's family through those years, and adding on siding to one thing to the another. So it has been modified a couple times before this project came to hand. I don't know if you're able to, if those
We're
files.
certainly sharing Corey's screen, but I think we're getting a chance to see what he's been working on all week. Sorry, Corey. Here we go.
There you go.
Are you able to see that now? Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
All right, as you can see, it's been changed from that regular cedar siding. We've applied how the board and bat would look like on the house to its entirety.
Okay. And there we go. That's the other thing I thought would be most significant for people to see. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like an idea of how a board and bat siding looks like. So I want to just, it's the front, and never mind the side. So it'll be just like the front of this picture.
I do have to be a wise guy and point out that there's a little bit of horizontal clapboarding in that picture too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just disregard that. It's just the front that was the main.
I
idea.
know. I just had to, do that. uh, Thank you. I don't think there were other images in the new sequence that specifically exhibit the board and batten, the vertical cladding as much as this one and the previous one with the elevations. I think those were the principal ones. But yeah, thank you. Corey, if you could show us the photo of the house as it once was. And Kim, I don't know if would you like to talk to us a little bit about your submission of the additional material there, or particularly the photo of the house from the 1950s and what you think about that?
Well, just my understanding is that my grandfather in the 80s, per his little narrative there, wanted it to look like it did when he was born in it, which is why it has the cedar shingles now. Because he remodeled it completely. But the point of the story and why we submitted is just to show that it was modernized here in the, probably in the 40s by my great grandfather, and bathrooms added the whole bit, and to the, to the horizontal traditional wood siding. So it's just, my point is only to say that because I'm the generation that's trying to recover and restore it for future generations, much like my grandpa did it his way, I'd like to do it in a way that's more appealing to me. And so that's it. That's just showing you the story of the changes, because it certainly has changed a little bit. I mean, externally it's changed for sure, but it also, at least from the drawings and his memory of the house to what it is, it's exactly what, I mean, the shape, the footprint, and the function of the house is exactly what we see here now. But the exterior, he updated, or he changed, actually undated it. But
Okay. Thank
I
you.
have to
I just-
speak up. Because I
Sure.
got a phone call from John. He got frozen again. So
Oh
Corey,
dear.
do anything about that?
I'll have to call him.
Sorry about that.
Forgive us,
Oh, I
everybody.
see. I see. That's exciting. I see John.
Oh, there he is. Yay.
Hi.
Okay. So let me then, if everybody's here, I'm getting an echo. I'm not sure why. Um,
That's because
anyway, I want to try and proceed. The photo of the house from the 1950s, Kim, is awesome. And I don't doubt for a moment that your father, it was, you said, had redone the building to look that way. Presumably prior to that, it had shingles or something else on it, right? And I get that. I want to say there's a small irony to that for me, which I know you're going to appreciate as soon as I say it, and that is what I think your father partly did was restore it then from an appearance point of view to what would more likely have been its authentic early Greek revival exterior expression, architecturally speaking, with, wait for it, the white painted horizontal clapboards, the earboards, the returns on the gable facing the street, which are classic Greek revival type of architectural element. Um, I don't know whether the entrance looked as it did prior to his work when it did prior to his work, but here you have what essentially is a Greek revival entryway, um, and some other features like that that are reminiscent of a Greek revival building. And it's clearly what it was originally. Whether he had a picture of it from then or something to fool with, I don't really know. And we don't know now. I don't want to spend a tremendous amount of time with this. I certainly want to let the other commissioners speak. And if there's anything else you or Tulia want to say, I want to make sure there's room for that too. But I've been thinking about this quite a lot, and I I want to share with everyone, if I didn't the previous time, why it is I asked you to come in for a hearing in the first place, and that was whenever we see a building of real age, especially on a public street like Ocean Street, and in a context where there's not a historic district that you're in by any means, and your building is not listed, nevertheless, it's part of the historic fabric of community that people see and appreciate tremendously on a routine and ongoing basis. And as a result, we care a lot about it. So I think any building like that sort of deserves its day for conversation. In this case, I don't feel that apart from the alterations to the rear of the building, which I believe the commissioners by and large said they were okay with last time, that the change of expression of the siding, cladding, if you will, from a horizontal to a vertical um, motif is, or the color change or anything of that nature, is entirely within the jurisdiction of this commission. It is really within our jurisdiction to have this conversation about it and share with you how much we typically like to see a historic building, if it can, continue to express itself as historic beyond simply the shape and footprint or, the bulk and scaling of it. And that's why we sort of wanted to lobby towards something a little bit more traditional than what you proposed. But it is very helpful to see it, by the way, and I want to thank you for that. Um, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and my commissioners can cut me to pieces over it. But my wise comment about the horizontal clapboards in your nice photo that you showed earlier made me wonder what would happen if you simply used your same hardy board, but horizontally, only on the facade, and you would still have all of the rest of the building vertical as you had originally approached. And I'm not sure if that would be confusing, but it partly assuages my apprehensions personally about the architecture of the building, which is kind of where we're thinking about. So I'm gonna stop talking right there and see what you think of that. And I know Jack was interested in the vertical siding and some others too, and I'll see where we are with that.
Do you need me to respond?
Probably, yeah. not hope I didn't just drop a bomb on you. That was not my intent at all.
Well, I mean, I think this, I don't live in a community where there's this much interaction with our homeowning. You know, we're in Pennsylvania and we are very much not in the historic district, and there's nobody kind of interacting with us about the choices we make for our home.
Yeah.
And it's very important to Phil and I, and it was extraordinarily important to my grandfather that the house stay in our family. And he was very into the history, his own personal history and the history of the Cape. And, you know, and so I want to respect that by doing right by the house, but I also want it to be a fun and refreshed experience for my generation and my kids, and you know who. And so and I'm very much drawn to this look, and you know, but I'll play the game if it really is that, if it matters that much to. I completely respect the sort of public face of the house, and that it's on a very well traveled, you know, foot traffic and cars, and you know, it's just, I mean, that's part of the appeal of the house for us, is that it's in such a great location. I just know that my grandpa crossed the marsh to go to school in the winter. You know, that's what I know about it. And
Yeah.
so I want to be a good neighbor and to do what's right, but I also I have every intention of putting an 1846 sign on the building so that people, when they walk by, think, wow, that's an old house. And, you know, and oh, wow, it's an old house that's been very well cared for. Look at all the money they put into remodeling it so that it's lasts for another 100 years. So, you know, that's, I guess, if, yeah, that's,
Thank you. And I appreciate that very much. In fact, I just came back from a road trip to Pennsylvania in Berks County, so I understand a little bit of the context you just expressed. You are not in a historic district. If you were, we'd be having a different kind of conversation. First of all, you wouldn't be talking to this historical commission. You'd be talking to the historic district committee that would have jurisdiction over whatever the district might be. And it's a different story there. And there they do usually pay attention, depending upon their charter, to a lot of the details and niceties of how the building is expressed through its architectural elements on its exterior as well as its shape and stuff. So with or without the experience, it's just by way of an explanation of context for where we are as a commission. I want to say again, I don't personally believe, and I checked with staff today, that we would be in a position to or inclined to try and, you know, impose a demolition delay on you or something over the issue of your choice of siding or color or anything like that. I don't believe that's our job. Our job is just to have this conversation and hope to, I don't mean to, I'm not trying to educate you. I'm trying to have you know where we are as a community, and where this commission is trying to preserve the historical integrity of buildings that do still have age among those who have been lost already. So, you know, it's neat that it's still here. Other commissioners, do you have any thoughts? Nancy, thank you very much.
I feel very much as Bob does, specifically about the material that is being used is something that I have a feeling your grandfather and uh, people walking by would shake their head of seeing this more modern material and saying the house is 1860, was it, whatever it was.
46.
Okay, thank you. Um, I would really, I think Bob's suggestion of letting you do the siding the way you have wanted it, but around the rest of the building, but I really would suggest doing the front of the house with horizontal siding, not vertical. It's just, it's not seen on the Cape that much, except for maybe our our postmodern houses might have that. Very different, very, very different.
It also, and I think I mentioned this at the first hearing, it also, from an architectural language point of view, vertical board and batten is much more typically seen on support buildings, such as a barn or maybe a breezeway connecting wing to a secondary building, but the primary building usually has a more formalized or specified treatment to it. It's just the way it typically is. I don't know. Jack, did you have any thoughts about this? You've had a chance to see the drawings. Jack, can you hear me? Jack K?
Sure. Is this a breakout room for Ocean Street or Ivanhoe?
Excuse me?
Mr. Dickey, we're not on that item yet. If you could just hold on, they're on a different item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not hearing from Jack. I don't know if he's had an audio problem. John, did you have any thoughts about any of this? John Richmond?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. It's kind of a tough one. I did want to mention that it's not just 1846. I believe it's in the same family. This house used to have a plaque on it because it's where Alva Burse was born.
Oh.
Not he's nationally famous, but he is locally well known. And if you look to the house to the left, it's kind of interesting. The house on the left has used what looks like hardy material as shingles. And they tried to expand and renovate within the feeling of the age of the house. And I have to say that the horizontal siding goes way more. Now, because I was flashing in and out and my screen was freezing, the photograph that was shown at the beginning with the building coming, is that the proposed look or renovation for this house, or was that just to demonstrate what the siding looks like?
I'm going to let the applicant
Just to demonstrate.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just to demonstrate how it looked like, which I think was what was requested last meeting that we met.
Yeah, that's correct. Jack K, can you hear us?
Barbara's here now.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Barbara, welcome. I'm not seeing her, however.
She's here, and she's not muted.
Um,
Oh,
Hi,
good.
Barbara. Greetings. Have you been able to hear some of this?
some of it, not a lot of it, and I apologize for.
No, that's all right. We're having a little bit of audio trouble for John and a little bit, or video trouble and a little bit of audio trouble with Jack at the moment, I think, too. I'm not quite sure what's going on.
No, I understand. I actually like the look.
Mhm.
I think it's pretty funky and pretty cool. However, I don't think it goes with a house of that age. You know, it's I'm kind of torn between, you know, it looks great and yeah, but.
Excuse me. Is there some way we can make sure we can reconnect with Jack? Because I feel he's an important part of the vote we'll end up taking here. I'm not quite sure what to do with that. I'm even wondering if he's frozen because the image is not moving.
Is to us anyway, he is.
Yeah, to us. Boy, am I going to be happy when we go back to in-person hearings again next month. No offense to anyone who's kind enough to make this possible, by the way, but it's got its own series of unique glitches to it, and each one is specific to the individual person trying to participate very often.
So, Kim, do you understand how we do feel deeply, and also largely because we have all been kind of history geeks for a long time and know the styles and know the materials that are used with those styles. Is there any chance that you would have horizontal shingles on that one side of the house, and we would certainly grant oh, I shouldn't say we certainly would. I believe we would, you know.
I mean, yeah, I guess I feel like you're forcing my hand, and I don't.
No, I'm sorry. That's not what we're trying to do. I promise.
Well, I mean, I respect the perspective that you all have, and I know that my grandfather would be in complete agreement with you. I mean, he put the cedar shakes on because he thought that he was sure that that's how the house looked when he was born in it, you know, in 1907, and you know, so he wrote his book about the history, his own personal history on the Cape. You know,
Yeah.
I get it. I just feel like this is just my own personal preference, and I would love to be able to have the bandwidth to do it. But I mean, I'm open
You-
to, you have no idea.
It's okay, Kim.
how
So let me
busy-
just interject. I don't want to prolong everybody's pain here. My opinion as chair is that we should not impose a demolition delay. It's the only tool in our box, and it's sort of draconian, and we never like to use it anyway. And I don't believe it's appropriate for us to do it. It's up to the commissioners to vote one way or the other, but my opinion is I don't believe it's appropriate in a case like this. Our endeavor is not to force your hand, is to have had the conversation we've had. I think we all totally respect your right as a property owner to do what you wish to do. That's never, in my mind, ever been a question. It's just we wanted an opportunity to express our preference as a commission because we care deeply about the building and its community, and from a maybe a different starting point than yours. And I get that. And that's fine. That's fine. And I said, any commissioner wants to cut me to shreds for saying that is welcome to, but I'll catch up with you later. I don't recommend it. If that's the case, I mean, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this matter? I think we should have asked that as well the hearing is open. I don't believe I've seen anyone. There's nobody in waiting that you see, Corey, with their hand up or anything like that, looking for an opportunity to speak to this.
I do not.
Okay, fair enough.
This is Phil Tomatich. I'll just identify myself. I was on earlier, then I was booted off, and then I came in right
Hi.
when the things. But I've listened to everything. I don't really have anything more to add. I'm just here to support him.
Great, thank you, Phil. I appreciate it. Sorry you got booted earlier. That was not personal, as they say. That was a universal thing that was happening to try and clear the air and keep Zoom bombers out of our hearing. That being the case, I would appreciate a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Nancy Shoemaker.
And a
I'll
second,
second
please. Oh,
I'll
thank you,
second that.
Barbara. All righty. Those in favor, Nancy?
Aye.
Jack Kay? Do we have Jack? He may still not be able to communicate. We'll keep going. Barbara?
To close the public
To
hearing?
close the public hearing, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. And John Richmond?
Aye.
And Robert Frazee? Aye. So the public hearing is closed. We need somebody who would read the appropriate motion for this.
Can I
Is it-
still just say something?
Yes, certainly, Nancy. Sorry.
Using such a modern style, I know it's not, modern, even 60s to us is modern, and material. I would just hope you don't put a plaque on it, because it's suddenly not, it's not a historic house in many ways. So just my concern that you don't put a plaque on if you do it with modern materials like that. Okay, I'm done.
Fair enough. So do I have somebody who could read the motions? Anybody willing, or I can?
I can.
I mean, it's unusual for me to do it,
Barbara,
but I
you have
certainly could.
You want me
Nancy?
to do it?
Oh,
Sure.
Barbara, if you could, that would be great.
Sure, be happy to.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
My pleasure.
So for 353 Ocean Street.
Yes. Okay, this is the motion for Kimberly Hunsinger, 353 Ocean Street, Hyannis, map 325, parcel 015, built 1846. The request for a partial demolition, construct addition of porch and sunroom, update siding, trim, windows, doors, and roof. Motion 1, I move that after review and consideration of public testimony, the application and associated materials, the significant building 353 Ocean Street, Hyannis, is a preferably preserved significant building.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Nancy Shoemaker.
Thank you, Nancy. An aye vote will impose an 18-month delay. A nay vote will not impose an 18-month delay. And it's a roll call vote. Nancy?
Nay.
And Cheryl's not here. Jack, are you on with us? We still have, no, Jack is still frozen down there, I'm sorry to say. Barbara?
Nay.
Thank you. John Richmond
Nay.
and Robert, nay also. So we move on to, if that motion failed, which it did, could you please read the next one, Barbara? That would be great.
Sure.
Thank
If
you.
motion one fails with a nay vote, I move that in accordance with section 112-3F, the Barnstable Historical Commission determines that the partial demolition of the building located 353 Ocean Street, Katuitt.
Yeah, this is not in Katuitt. That's a
That's
typo
not
there.
right.
No, it's
That's
Hyannis. Beg your pardon.
Right, okay, so we need to make that change. Is not detrimental to the historical, cultural, and architectural heritage or resources of the town.
And a second, please.
I'll second it, Nancy Shoemaker.
Thank you, Nancy. An aye vote determines that the partial demolition of the single-family structure is not detrimental. No demolition delay would be imposed. Nancy?
Can I be on the end of this voting? I'm really concerned.
Okay. Yep, you can. So Cheryl's not here. Jack is unable to vote at the moment. Barbara?
Aye with reservations.
Okay. John Richmond?
I feel that I have to say aye, Bob.
Thank you. And I say aye as well. Nancy?
I would absolutely say aye if it could be added on to that the front of the house would have more traditional material.
I don't
need to add that, yeah.
I don't think we're adding that in the motion at the moment. I don't think that was part of the understanding for the vote. I mean, I'm sorry.
I guess I'll say aye, but Kim, I really.
You have reservations too. I mean, I understand that. I think we all have expressed our preference, certainly, but I think that's about as far as we can properly take it. And in my estimation, we have an aye vote and the ayes carry it. So thank those of you who've been very patient.
Barbara, you hadn't voted.
I did. I voted aye also.
Barbara.
No, I did.
Barbara voted. She voted aye. Yeah.
I believe I had said aye.
She voted aye with reservations is what she had said. And I appreciate that. You know, thank you all for your candor, but your cooperation as well. It's appreciated. Some of these things are hard, and I know that. And it's not just for the commission. It's sometimes very hard for the applicant to figure these things out too. And I thank you guys for sticking with us through it. And, you know, I walk down that way on the way down to the JFK Memorial pretty often. We'll keep an eye out.
Well, you know, if I'm there, I'd love to talk to you more.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you all's your input.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Yep.
Alrighty. And thank you all, the rest of you, for bearing with us while we worked on that. Our next hearing is a continuation as well for John Duane and Catherine Friedman, trustees, 43 Iano Avenue, Hyannisport, map 287, parcel 074, built 1880. Partial demolition, existing dwelling to be raised and set on new foundation and renovated to preserve original portions. Construct new additions, plural, including an attached garage. Update windows, roof, and siding. Full demolition of the existing detached garage built in 1935. And we'd like to open a public hearing. If I could have a motion to do that, please.
So moved, Nancy.
Excuse me, this hearing's already open, isn't it? Yeah, this is a continuation. I don't need to open the hearing.
Oh,
I beg
okay.
your pardon. We're already there. That was typed into my notes here by someone else, and I just didn't skip into it. Welcome applicants and proponents for 43 Iano Ave, as well as members of the public. Would those of you who are proponents for the project, attorneys Ford, excuse me, welcome both of you.
Yes, thank you.
And anyone else, please feel free to introduce the topic and any further comments or additions that you folks have been able to provide in the time since we last met, and then we'll move from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Attorney Michael Ford will start. Also, the architects for the project, Patrick Ahern and Garrett Goodrich, are also on.
Great.
And we'll be addressing the commission and available for questions for the hearing as well. procedural question first, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Is Jack able to participate in this hearing? I think he's
I'm not
necessary
seeing
for a
him.
quorum.
Yeah. Oh, I don't believe he's necessary for a quorum. We
I
have.
thought you indicated that Barbara had not done a melon on this.
No, it was
so
Cheryl Powell who had
was
not.
Cheryl.
Barbara was in on the hearing to begin.
Excellent. I'm glad
Okay,
she
so
was. Great.
Yeah, no, me
Okay,
too.
good.
Believe me, don't worry.
Okay,
Thank you
all right.
for clarity.
All
I
right.
love you. I love your question.
Jack is moving.
Jack, can you hear us now? Jack K? No,
Strange.
we're not getting through. It's too bad. That's happened before.
I called him on his cell phone and no answer.
Okay. Well, I think we should proceed. We have what we need for a quorum in order to go forward.
So, Mr. Chairman, when this was continued, it was continued for two purposes, as I understood it. One, the committee wanted to do an on-site at the property, so they could take a look at the site, the building, and the neighborhood. And two, the applicant was encouraged and indeed agreed that they would reach out to the neighborhood that had participated in the last hearing. To the extent we were able to, we did. We set up a remote meeting, and as a result of that, we have some proposed modifications in the plan on a concept plan that we'll explain to you this evening. So those were the two reasons. What I would like to do is first have Patrick Ahern address one of the questions that we heard in a number of the letters in opposition, which was that this building, as proposed, moving the original historic house and adding the additions, was much too large for the neighborhood. It was larger than the other houses in the neighborhood, did not fit in terms of its mass and its size on this particular lot. And what we did, Mr. Chairman, was to have the architects put together with assistance from our office a graphic that shows all of the houses of the neighbors and the proposed house, and compares them apples by apples in terms of building coverage and lot sizes, to give the commission some actual numbers. They saw it themselves when they were out there, the three commission members that did go out and do an on-site, as I understand it. But if I could have Patrick Ahern first go through that chart for you. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but we do want to get it in the record and make sure that we've been able to address it for you. So if I may, Mr. Chairman, if I could turn it over to Patrick for that purpose.
Absolutely, sir.
Can all of you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. So let's start off with understanding our client's lot in particular, which is a 22,405 square foot lot. And our coverage is proposed as presented of 21.58% lot coverage. And that equates to a building coverage of 4,835 square feet. If we look to the Herlihy house at 85 Wachusett Avenue, that has a coverage of 21.48% with a building coverage of 3,368 square feet. The building coverage is larger, and the percentage of coverage on the lot is also slightly larger on a much smaller lot of 15,682 square feet. So a significantly smaller lot of some 7,000 square feet less, but also very similar coverage, and building coverage is actually 300 square feet more. And their house sits right on the property line, which is an immediate abutter that we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. If we move around the chart and we look at 172 Irving Avenue, that has a 32.60% coverage with a building coverage of 44 square feet. on a much smaller lot of only 13,939 square feet. When we look at Richard Clark's property, family property at 71 Wachusett Avenue, that's on a 14,810 square foot lot versus our lot at 22,405, about 8,000 square feet less. Yet that has a lot coverage of 24.88% and building coverage of 3684 square feet. When we move over to 80 Wachusett Avenue, its lot area is 20,038 square feet with a building coverage of 4528 square feet and 22.60% lot coverage. Very similar in terms of our lot is still 2,000 square feet or 2,400 square feet larger, but the coverages are somewhat similar. So in terms of context and scale, it's important to note that. When we go over to 144 Irving Avenue, which is a lot of 25,265 square feet versus our 22,405, that lot coverage is at 26.64% versus our 21.58%, and the building coverage is considerably larger at 6,730 square feet. When we move over to 143 Irving Avenue, that has a lot coverage of 26.40% versus our lot coverage of 21.58%. And its building coverage is at 3,680 square feet on a 13,939, much smaller lot. I can go on and we can talk about some more of them, but the point I'm trying to make is we have in essence what is in square footage a lot that's nearly twice as large as many of the lots, but yet our coverage on that lot is significantly smaller, and our square footage of building coverage is within the context of many of the same houses in the area. So when we look at this and we look at scale and we look at context, I think you'll find that in fact what we're proposing is very much in character and scale. When we look at massing, I'd like to point on another drawing, if we could, photograph rendering that we did, and I want to talk about that as well.
Since I'm not able to share my screen, it would be on page 10 of the renderings file, I believe, just to the left of this.
There we go. And can we zoom that? That's good. Close enough. So we could just go back to the blower.
I'm going to.
Okay, let's just leave that there. So if we look to the house to the left that's shown on this this rendering, which is currently for sale, that house its building coverage is 32.60%, and its building coverage itself is 4,544 square feet. So that's an immediate house next door on a lot of only 13,939 square feet. Clearly, the house in terms of mass is larger and volume is larger, as well as the percent coverage on the lot is also significantly larger. When we move over to the right side and we look at the house at 90 Wachusett, actually, sorry, at 80 Wachusett, that has a building coverage of 4,528 square feet versus our 4,835, and its coverage on the lot is 22.60%, greater coverage on a lot that's 2,500 or 2,400 square foot smaller. So,
And that's the massing to the far right where you can see a bit of the turret.
correct. And then when we look at the Hurley house, which is right on our shared property line at 85 Wachusett, its lot coverage is 2148 square feet, and its building coverage is 3368 on a 15,000 square foot lot. So as we look about the neighborhood and we look at the building coverage and the lot percentages of coverage and the size of the lots, it's very clear that we are very much in scale with the houses within the immediate neighborhood. And in terms of mass and volume, we're very much nestled in to the context of what you see in the buildings from the public realm, not only from the streetscape, but from as you move out to the beach and out to the water. I think that's important.
So one of the things that we prepared as a response to our meeting with the neighbors that were able to attend was a site diagram illustrating a few, obviously hearing their concerns about the project, but also interpreting that architecturally speaking and trying to make adjustments to accommodate some of their views.
Right, so if we could go to that drawing and we could talk to that, that might be helpful. Here we go. So some of the comments that came out of our Zoom call with the 5 property owners that were there, a number of things came out of that. One was, is there anything that we could do to modify the location of the house to provide some more breadth on the lot? And we did. So if we look towards the Hurley house now, we have 23 feet 9 inches of side yard setback, where only 15 feet is required by zoning. So that's significant. And then in regarding the pool, if we could locate the pool in a way that still would preserve the requirements to be outside the 100-foot buffer zone, but also pull it away from the Hurley side of the property line, could we do that? And we did. So we're now 24 feet from the property line where 15 feet is required. In addition to that, on the other side of the house, where currently the corner house for sale, which is virtually on the property line, we're able to shift the attendant garage wing to the 15-foot setback. But more importantly, there is open space the way we've got the house located, so that the current house where it sits now is very close to their house. And by shifting the house over, we now create open space of 41.6 feet as we shifted the house off of the property line, where only 15 feet is required. So the other question that came out was, about how much of the historic portion of the house we're preserving. We met with the building commissioner before we got too far into the design process, and he agreed in our calculations where 80% of the historic portion of the house is being preserved. And that very much was in line with conversations we had with a representative of the Cape Cod Commission as well. So some of the letters and some of the correspondence and some of the conversations that we had with the abutters talked about these particular items, about a concern about how much of the historic house are we saving. We did our research from a historical point of view, and we looked at materiality, and we looked at architectural features of the house that no longer exist, that we're putting back. We're removing the vinyl siding, we're putting on shingles, we're putting a wood shingled roof, we're putting some architectural elements and details, this hooded piece over the gabled end. we're putting back, we're detailing the porch as it was originally.
In response to some historic images that we had researched and discovered circa early 1900s.
Right, so we've kind of pegged the house at a 1900s imagery of what it was. So those architectural elements have been incorporated. We've listened to the neighbors in terms of desire to have a little more breadth around the house. We did that. We moved the house a little further forward, so there's more breadth at the rear of the house of 26.6 inches instead of 15 feet. That's required by zoning. So in all cases, we're well within the zoning envelope that's required, well within it. We've provided more open space around the house and still preserving the big open lawn in the front. There were some comments about the existing stone wall, which we are preserving, and we're not changing it from where the driveway is now. That becomes the pedestrian way to the house. We've looked at the design very carefully and considered character and scale and mass as it relates to the neighborhood and the context. I think the previous illustrative plan of the neighborhood and all the analysis which came from apples to apples review of the assessor cards really talked to the density and the square footages and the building coverages of the lots all around the neighborhood that were well within that context. And I think when we were on the site with Bob and Nancy and John from the commission the other day, I think it became readily apparent when we walked the site and we had some little stakes out where the house was to be shifted over, that we're very much locating the house more central to the existing lot and providing open space all around the house in a way that's consistent with many of the other houses in the neighborhood. And we've been respectful to the immediate abutters. One, the Hurleys, where their house happens to be right on the property line, does not meet any of the required setbacks as a matter of right because it's pre-existing. We understand that, but we still try to accommodate and provide more open space and move the pool over. And the neighbor on the corner where their house is for sale will clearly benefit from moving the house over, where now instead of having a house on top of them that they're trying to sell, we now have 41.6 feet of space between them. So that's kind of the initial narrative that we did. And turn it back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Patrick. So let me make sure had my sound back on, Mr. Chairman. So,
no, good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we tried to carry out the task that the committee charged us with, particularly trying to have some interface with the neighbors, which was strongly suggested. And while we can't do everything the neighbors want, because they expressed that they were trying to preserve views in the neighborhood, and I know that's not necessarily a material issue for your committee in terms of your findings, and we understand that. But they asked us to try and make some of these changes. Whether we made them to the degree that the neighborhood would be pleased with, we don't know. We were just able to get to the changes earlier today. We worked on them over the weekend, and we're offering them to you with this condition that in the event the commission makes a determination that a delay is not warranted in this particular case with your demolition delay bylaw hats on, and makes a determination that it's not a substantial alteration such that needs to be referred to the Cape Cod Commission, that we would ask you to do that with the condition that the plan set be revised to include the changes shown in this concept plan, so that we follow through on these things that we're suggesting we're willing to do with the neighbors on this concept plan today. So happy to answer questions. That's our proposal, and we hope that the committee feels that we've tried to respond to their charge to us to meet with the neighborhood in good faith.
That's great, Attorney Ford. Thank you very much. And Patrick, Aaron, thank you for your comments and your accommodations for both the commission and some of the neighbors to be on site. We appreciate that. I hope it helps things work better for everybody all of the time. I know it doesn't all of the time, but it's a step in the right direction. I think your accommodations of shifting around the buildings on the land slightly since the last hearing are certainly in the right direction from all I could gather, as well as an effort to accommodate some of the neighbor concerns and still meet your client's goals. I'm aware that we have received further letters from members of the public. I don't know about the exact timing. Certainly, I'm going to guess that most were unaware of these most recent shifts. Whether those would make a difference to those individuals, I'm not sure. There have been a couple of things that have come to mind while each of you has been presenting this, and that were partly in my mind anyway after reading those letters, and I want to get to those again in a more in a more complete way in a moment. One question I have is, it was very interesting and very helpful to see the square foot coverage and percentage of lot coverage on the neighboring properties. But what is the, and I should know this, but I don't without shuffling through a lot of papers, what is the square footage of the proposed house as proposed, as a comparison with the others? Can one of you speak to that? I mean, the reason I'm asking is that several individuals in their letters to the commission spoke of a round number of 9,000 square feet, and I don't know if that's even in the ballpark.
Well, that's not the case. The basement is 2,676 square feet. The first and second floor of the house, which is basically the primary living space, was livable area was 5,117 square feet on the first and second floor.
And in this case, when we did our analysis, because we were aiming to do an apples to apples comparison, utilizing only the data that was provided in the assessor cards, we were only including building coverage, not including steps. We also included the extra features such as outbuildings, garages, sheds as listed, and that analysis did not include subterranean conditions of other properties.
Sure, thank you. No, that makes sense. I just want to make sure, I heard your apples to apples comment a couple of times in what you presented, and I appreciated that. I just want to be sure we are in fact all on the same page, because if some people are thinking this is a 9,000 square foot building, then that sounds enormous and potentially exaggerates its enormity. I want to be careful we're correct one way or the other what we conclude. Sorry.
Right. And after the adjustments presented today, the building footprint would be 4,835 square feet, which results in that 21.58% coverage that Patrick mentioned earlier.
Great, thank you.
Just as comparison to what we had.
Just like real estate brokers, when they want to put their house for sale, they don't list the basement as square footage.
Right.
First and second.
Even if it's finished, I know that.
So livable area, heated space, first and second floor, it's 5,117 square feet.
And Mr. Chairman, on the apples to apples, one of the letters that you received the first round, complaining about the size of the house, is from an owner of a lot where the building coverage is just under 7,000 square feet. 6,700 square feet is one of the letters that said this was too big, and that's just on the first floor.
I
That's
appreciate the
144
comment.
Irving Avenue.
I beg your pardon?
That's 144 Irving Avenue, 6,330 of building coverage and 26.64% coverage.
Okay, thank you very much. Attorney Ford, you mentioned that, and I believe correctly, the view question, which has been part of a number of letters, and I understand why. It's a big issue for anybody living around something that's about to change, is not within the purview of this commission. It's not something that we can hear or that we can rule on, at least not directly, and I don't believe indirectly it's entirely obvious how we would do that either. And I want people listening and people participating to understand that, it's not an expectation that they can have of our commission that we can respond to, not because we might not want to, but because we just don't have the authority to do so. That is not within our purview. And last comment from me before I ask for some commissioner comments and then open it up for public comment is I'm sensitive, and I think all commissioners are sensitive to the impact of a major alteration, partial demolition involved to a historic asset in a National Register district community. I'm interested in knowing, or care about knowing, what the impact is on the surrounding area, on the National Register district in the neighborhood, not just to confine all of our evaluations within the lot lines of the property. And I think you guys, you gentlemen who have proposed this have addressed a lot of that in your presentations, and I appreciate it. You spoke with Sarah Korjeff at the Cape Cod Commission before even coming to us, and many of the proposal elements here are reflective of that fact, and I appreciate that as well. We did have a session with her as a commission immediately prior to the first hearing on this property a month ago, and the subject was the process that would be applicable should this commission feel it was appropriate to refer a proposal to the Cape Cod Commission. And I asked Sarah a question that I think a little bit surprised her, and I don't know that she really had an answer. It was, so aside from evaluating the components of a proposal within the lot lines, on the property, and about the individual asset that's being altered, what is your advice, or what occurs when you evaluate the impact of a alteration of this nature? And I didn't specifically cite this case by any means, in general, on the surrounding area and the neighborhood. And she said, honestly, in all of the times that she had evaluated and commented on proposals to help either historical commissions or individual applicants or property owners, she didn't believe that specific question had ever arisen. And so I just want you to know, in the back of my mind, is that there's still a question a little bit of whether that is germane as a matter for a point of referral from this commission to the Cape Cod Commission. And I wouldn't mind a response on that, Michael, if you feel like that. I don't believe there's precedent for that, and I'm not necessarily inclined to go that direction. I just want to be really candid and say it's on my mind that as a commission, we conceivably could look at that, either together in conjunction with your blessing for it to occur quickly or some other way.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm getting at.
The way I've, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
Respond just briefly.
Mm-hmm.
The way I've looked at that is that if you follow the guidelines, that tells you whether there's going to be an impact on the neighborhood. That and the architectural style and the extent to which the historic home is being preserved or enhanced in the proposal. But it certainly doesn't get you to where these neighbors want to go, which is, and they were very frank with us in the remote meeting, that they consider the area of the lot where the house is being moved to, the middle of the lot, open space in their neighborhood that is supposed to remain open. And the views that gives are supposed to be maintained. And as I reported to the commission the last time, there are no restrictions in the chain of title that would give any other property owner rights in the real estate to either pass over it, which is what they've done in the past in terms of accessing the water, or to utilize it as a view shed. Notwithstanding that, we took the commission's charge and met with them and tried to address that to the extent we could by increasing over what's required by zoning the buffers around the house and the open space to try and continue to give it some of that feel. And so we think we've done that. And so I'd suggest to you that if we've complied with that and we've complied with the standards for referral that are laid out by the commission and in the ordinance, then that dictates what the effect will be on the neighborhood. And that's what you draw it from.
Yes, I appreciate that response. Personally, that is my assessment as well. Excuse me, I have a phone that's picking up. I just have to stop it. I beg your pardon. We have a landline in the room that sometimes someone actually calls.
Understood. Yeah.
Thank you. All righty. I would like to hear first from commissioners, and then I'd like it to open it up to the members of the public. Any commissioners have any comments or responses, especially Nancy or John? You guys attended the site visit with me, and your impressions? Nancy, you want to unmute yourself? Nancy?
There.
You're on
Okay.
mute.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. Visiting the house, I was the whole property. I was very impressed with how between that house and the house going to the south, there was what, 5 feet, 3 feet between the buildings, and I would imagine that now that's the house that's for sale, but
Yes.
whatever, somebody's going to own it, and to me, they're doing a very wonderful thing to have that house not be right on top. And I mean, I've never seen two houses that close to each other, ever. So, to me, it's a positive experience, and that you're caring, because I do want to see the neighborhood be, to some degree, pleased or accepting of what's going on. But I don't see where there's any reason to resist this change in the construction of the building and the placement of the buildings.
Thank you, Nancy. Jack, I see you're back with us, but let me just go to John first because he was on the site visit, and then I'd like your impressions. John, what did you think, reflecting on the site visit?
Well, honestly, Bob, I was pretty favorably impressed. I'm glad to see that they're saving as much of the building as they are, that they've hired a top-notch architect to make it look right. I think that's what I would just say for now.
Okay, thank you. Jack, you were not on the site visit, but you've seen the modified plan, and I presume you've been able to see some of the letters from the neighbors, and you understand from just this presentation alone some of the response to that by the proponents. Do you have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, I do. I apologize for not being available to do the visit, but the plan, as I see it now, and I personally have visited this site unofficially. I didn't trespass, but I did visit it because of the letters. In the letters, there seems to be not a preoccupation, because I don't want to sound rude, but the visibility to the waters and the visibility between the buildings, the new plan and the new location seems to improve that to a degree where you have to be more reasonable in your assessment of the present location of this house versus the option now. I think is an improvement to the view, and I'm not at all opposed to trying to preserve as much of this house as they're trying to preserve without and making some adjustments to its design that are not unfavorable to the overall design of the building. And what I'm also feeling is that there was no height issues with the new design, where I had heard earlier that there was some concern about the height issues, and I don't see that going forward now. So I've been by it a couple of times to try and put myself in everybody's shoes in the effort to be completely fair. And I don't find that there's an unreasonable effort here.
Thank you. No, I appreciate your thoughts, Jack. I had a hunch you would have gone by, and possibly more than once.
Yeah, I don't want to vote on anything I haven't seen.
Sure. No, I appreciate that too. Other commissioners, Barbara, do you have any thoughts on this?
I do not. I'm all set.
Okay. Okay, well, I believe we've heard from the commission. My thoughts were, first of all, as I said, I very much appreciated being able to go to the site and visit with the attorney and the architects and walk around and see it in person. My wife grew up in the summers in the port. I was married in Hyannis Port at St. Andrews. I have some skin in the game from the standpoint of the village community, and I want you all to be sure to know that. That is not really something that can have any great sway on my opinion about an application, nor will it. But I'm sensitive to some of the issues that were raised, and I think I have to say once again, fortunately or unfortunately, maybe it's a blessing for me from some standpoint. The view over, through, and around that property or any property in the port is not specifically the purview of this historical commission. It's just not something I believe we have the right to rule on as a basis for our decisions. And you know, to the extent that that's disappointing to some of the neighbors, I'm sorry. I won't apologize that it's true, but I regret that it is. It is the case, however. I do think that from the specifics of on-site perspectives, the new proposal is relieving some of the proximity problems of existing houses to the buildings. In the case of the building to the north, the modification that they've proposed today is certainly an improvement over what was proposed originally. I do think they're making a good faith effort to accommodate as best they can some of the requests that have been made. Whether they will meet all of them, I mean, you know, none of us can please all of the people all of the time. That sounds like a terrible cliche, but it is true. And I think a sincere effort has to be appreciated when it's made. I will say I think this is one of the best applications I've ever seen to any historical commission in terms of the completeness and the background research done prior to its presentation is concerned. And, you know, hats off to those who were involved in orchestrating that. Again, that manages to consider the issues that are principally on site, not the wider community. And I want to go to public comment at this point, if we could. Corey, do you have a way to ascertain which of the public comments came in most recently that perhaps commissioners may not all of them have had a chance to read? And I'm wondering if it would be appropriate, if there aren't like hundreds of them, and there aren't, to read, I think there were 3 most recent ones, read them into the record. I don't think they were terribly long.
I can do that.
That would be awesome. We did that at the last hearing, and I'd like to try and do that this time too, to be fair to everyone. And then we'll offer.
Well, actually, 4 new emails.
Were there 4 new ones?
Today,
okay.
yes. If
you.
you'd like for me to read all 4, I can do that.
If you feel like you can semi-speed read and still be heard, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, this one is addressed March 18th, 2025 to Erica Brown, Town of Barnstable Planning and Development Department, 367 Main Street. And this is objection to proposed modification expansion at 43 Ionnaw Avenue, Hyannisport, Mass. This is from Denise Shanahan. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct. It's addressed, Dear Ms. Brown, I am writing to formally object to the proposed partial demolition and expansion, 9,000 square foot plus pool of the existing home and historical structure at 43 Ionnaw Avenue, Hyannisport, Mass. This project threatens not only the character of the home itself, but also the integrity of the Hyannisport Historic District, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Hyannisport is a truly unique place, deeply rooted in tradition and shared values. As a lifelong resident of this community for over 50 years and many generations before me, living just a few blocks from the home, I believe the proposed expansion is excessive and out of scale with the lot and surrounding historic homes. Hyannisport thrives because of a long-standing commitment to mutual consideration, care, and respect for its heritage. The substantial increase in size and scale would disrupt the architectural harmony of the neighborhood and set a concerning precedent for future development. The Commission should carefully evaluate the potential impact of direct butters, the broader community, and the historic district. Given this property's highly visible location at the harbor's entrance, its aesthetic and historical significance should be given the utmost consideration. I respectfully urge the Commission to review this proposal in detail and ensure that any modification align with the historic and architectural integrity of Hyannisport. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Denise Shanahan. Next letter is from Margaret Tutton. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct. Dear Barnstable Historical Commission. Tootin, sorry. Margaret Tootin. Dear Barnstable Historical Commission, I write to you not only as a lifelong resident of Hyannisport, but as an artist whose life and work have been shaped by the beauty and quiet authenticity of the place. My home, a classic Cape Cod cottage, has stood for generations. Its trellised roses climbing up the front, tended with care for decades. My grandchildren now run in my yard, just as my children once did. My greatest wish is for them to return here year after year for the next 60 years and still recognize the place that has been our family's heart. Hyannisport is more than a collection of houses. It is a living work of art. It has long been a refuge and inspiration, not just for me, but for generations of artists who found something rare in its simple, unspoiled charm. The play of light on weathered shingles, the gentle sway of beach grass, the way the village seems to exist in perfect harmony with the sea, these are the quiet, irreplaceable details that define this community. They are what make Hyannisport not just a location, but a feeling. The proposed development at 43 Iowa Avenue threatens that delicate balance. A 9,000 square foot structure is simply too large for the site. It crowds the neighbors, disregards the rhythm of the landscape, and introduces a scale that is not in keeping with the spirit of a historic village. This is not just about one house, it is about a growing pattern of overbuilding, a shift that disregards the essence of what makes Hyannisport special. In a place like this, it is not enough to consider what can be built. We must also ask what should be built. There is an unspoken understanding in historic communities. We build with respect. We honor what came before us so that those who come after can still recognize it. This is how Hyannisport has endured, not just as a place, but as an idea, a rare and beautiful example of what Cape Cod was meant to be. I ask the Commission carefully consider what is at stake. If we allow these outsized developments to continue, the Hyannisport my grandchildren know and love, the one that has inspired so many for so long, will slowly disappear. And once it is gone, we cannot get it back. I stand firmly opposed to the partial demolition request for 43 Iowa Avenue that has come before you for approval. With kind regards, Margaret. And we have a letter from Susan Santa Cruz. The letter states, I am a resident and taxpayer owning property at 72 Wachusett Avenue in Hyannisport. I bought in 1999 after having rented for a number of years. What attracted me was the low-key atmosphere, the Cape-appropriate homes, and the consideration of neighbors to neighbors. None of these three are apparent with the Duane project, and first and foremost is their total lack of concern and consideration to neighbors, whose views will either be impeded or vanish by their project. By approving this project, you are changing what makes Hyannis special. Please be bold enough to realize that bigger is not always better, and that taking away long-cherished and protected views will cause Hyannisport to suffer reputational damage. Respectfully submitted, Susan Santa Cruz, 72 Wachusett Avenue. And we have one more from William Young Humphreys Dickey. And the letter states, Dear Barnstable Historic Commission, I'm writing to express my deep concern over the increasing erosion of Hyannisport's historic character, most recently with the proposed remodel at 43 Iowa Avenue. While labeled a partial remodel, the plan calls for a sprawling 9,000 square foot structure that would extend to the property line, overwhelming the lot and encroaching on its neighbors. The proposal to shift the house and build upward would also obstruct cherished views, disrupting the open, harmonious landscape that has defined this community for generations. This is not just about one house, it is about the systematic unraveling of what makes Hyannisport unique. My family has been part of the community since the 1800s, one of the longest lineages in Hyannisport. I have witnessed firsthand the values that have preserved this town for generations: respect for history, thoughtful stewardship of the land, and an unspoken agreement that no single homeowner's ambition should come at the expense of their neighbors or the character of the village itself. Hyannisport is not just a desirable place to build, it is a place built on tradition. It is a community where homes have stood for over a century, where the landscape reflects Cape Cod's natural beauty, and where change has always been approached with care and consideration. My great-grandfather was one of the original founders of this town, and I can say with certainty that he and his contemporaries would have never imposed such self-serving and disruptive changes on their friends and neighbors. The fact that these oversized, out-of-place developments continue to be approved is not only disheartening, it is a direct threat to the identity of Hyannisport. We have already seen historic properties gutted beyond recognition, century-old trees ripped from the earth, and plastic fences and artificial landscapes replacing the native beauty of Cape Cod. This particular proposal is another glaring example of that destruction. It does not belong here. It would not just alter one property, it would chip away at the very fabric of Hyannisport. Hyannisport has endured for generations because its residents have understood that history is not something to be casually discarded. I urge the Commission to take a stand, not just for this House, but for the future of our community. If we do not protect what makes Hyannisport special, we risk losing it forever. Sincerely, William Young Humphreys Dickey. And that concludes the new correspondence from today.
Unmute, Bob.
And I forget to press buttons. I apologize. Thank you, Corey. I know that was a little bit long, but I wanted everyone to have a chance to hear those thoughts, which are, I know, very sincerely expressed. They're real. I'm not sure how many of them we can address or have addressed in the course of time here with the Commission, but I would like to see if there's anyone from the public who would like to speak at the moment, preferably to start with at least those who did not have letters read out loud, but who may have something they would like to say. Please raise your hand. I see Betty Lutke, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. If you could give me a tiny bit of leeway, I'd like to perhaps discuss why we're assembled here today. Attorney Ford and you have both correctly said, and we saw that in the first presentation on Ocean Street, we do not fall under the purview of Mass General Law, Chapter 40C. We have two historic districts that do, the Main Street and the Kings Highway that do. In 1972, the Kennedy compound with 3 contributing homes was labeled an historic district. In 1987, 13 more districts were labeled in the town of Barnstable. Old King Highway came in 1987. It has 459 participating homes. Also in 1987 came the Hyannisport Historic District. It follows Old Kings Highway with 225 contributing homes. And I think that's very important. We've alluded to it here, but we haven't discussed it. Attorney Ford in his comments used the phrase "on this particular lot," an absolutely critical component of the discussion today, on this particular lot. But this particular lot has to be seen in the context of 225 contributing homes. And in 2010, the town of Barnstable had a Barnstable Historic Preservation Plan drawn up. I'm sure this commission is probably familiar with that plan, as a lot of your purview and perhaps actions would come from that plan and the actions recommended in it. Under each section of the plan, they talked about Village of Hyannis. They talked about issues and concerns. If you give me just a moment, I want to just read a couple sentences from there, because it's very germane to why we're here today. All right, issues and concerns for Hyannis. For those historic resources in Hyannis Village that are located outside of the historic district, there are no protective measures. in place to protect these buildings from historically inappropriate alterations or even demolition. This is particularly evident in Hyannisport, with the high land value where owners continue to seek larger homes in the popular seaside neighborhood. These planners, not us, objectively recognized in 2010 what was going on in Hyannisport. And shame on the town of Barnstable. I'm going to speak to my town councilor about this because I'm very upset that no action was taken on this, okay? Shame on the town. Why didn't we act in regards to this plan? Why are we only protecting Kings Highway? For those of us who go to 6A in Barnstable, it's gorgeous. I drive through there, I have a sense of peace. I love it. I think all of us love it, okay? And the Main Street Historic. I mean, they have their issues, but by gosh, they're fulfilling their duties. But shame on us for the other 13 we did nothing about to protect. And I watched you struggle with that first applicant. You're just talking about battens versus shingles. Look at the screen you had on that. I could see the pain. I could see you're struggling. And we're not struggling here. My goodness. It's awful that you don't have anything to build on. And Attorney Ford knows this. He knows you have nothing. But my God, let's think about what we do have. We have a district, and we have 225 contributing homes. And let's talk about the play of light. And as far as that presentation on the percentage of lot, I don't think that's apples to apples at all. It's not at all. In my letter, what I talked about were the 9 homes that encircle the harbor. There's 9 homes. This is absolutely precious. There's a reason every road race that comes through this area comes through Hyannisport. It's gorgeous. This home is one of the 9. And a couple years ago, we came before this board in protest of a demolition of one of these 9 homes. And that demolition didn't happen, thank God. That home is still standing today. And this is not apples to apples. All your comparisons, you compared it to houses that exist, with one exception. And I would say that exception, it's horrible, okay? I'll tell you, it's horrible what was built. And it was built because the town of Barnstable did nothing to give you any kind of opportunity to protect these homes. And to compare against these that are already existing, that's absurd. This building is existing. We have to compare it against what's there. It's existing. And my background, my grandmother came here. This was one of the first resort communities on Cape Cod. That's why it's worthy of being protected. And there were hotels here. One of the comparisons you did, Mr. Clark's house, that was a hotel. Of course they maximized the lot. He still has numbers above the rooms in his house, okay? It was built as a hotel. I think Miss Hughes's house was also part of a hotel. My grandmother stayed in these hotels. And then her brother bought a home. And when she died, she had enough money that my parents bought a home. And I go back to what I said when these people who wrote this plan said, it's money, it's land value. That's what's driving this. The values of homes. My house was bought in the 1960s for $17,000. These houses are going, now you can't find a house in Hyannisport less than $5 million. This has got to stop. There's got to be consideration for this. I cannot say strong enough that you put the 18-month on. Let's look at this. Let's stop this insanity that's going on in Hyannisport. The play of light. And who said, oh, how close the houses are? My house was 1 foot from my neighbor. 1 foot. I came before this board. I moved it 10 feet. That's not uncommon. Lot lines. This house has pre-existing non-conforming homes north and south. So you need extra space. It just, the emotion here, you've seen it in the letters, and I'm emotionally raw here because we've got to take a step back. We need a pause. I say, go to the Cape Cod Commission. Let's talk this out. Let's figure this out. And this house belongs in a suburb. It belongs in a suburb. There, of the 9 homes that ring this, nobody has a garage like that. Nobody does that. That's not historical precedent at all. This is the harbor we're talking about. That garage should be in back like it is. I didn't even know. I've never trespassed on the property, by the way. I trespassed on the Floyd's property, but I'm sure they're okay with that. I went on the Floyd's property and I looked there. You know, I never knew there was a garage. That's how it should be. Look at the homes in Hyannisport. Only the newer ones have these grotesque garages, huge garages facing the street. That belongs in a suburb. That's for all the cars that go to the suburbs. Don't do it. Don't do it. They've given a little, they can give more. And also, how did I hear about this? I was walking my dog one morning and one of my neighbors said, do you know what's going on? I said, sorry, what? Okay. Unbelievable. We have 225 participating homes in this historic district, and you notified a few abutters. As you see by your letters, all 225 of us should have a voice. And what did your architect just say? He just said, the neighbors that were able to attend. Neighbors able to attend the Zoom session you just had? How could we attend if we didn't know about it? So that was ludicrous. Attorney Ford said you continued this so you could do an on-site visit, which you did, and then you encouraged the applicant to reach out. They didn't reach out. They didn't reach out. Give this historic district some thought, okay? It's all we have because the town of Barnstable didn't do due diligence and get us in Chapter 40C.
Betty, thank you.
I know I have to stop, but please, I urge you, if there's ever a case, this is it. Let's pause. Let's do the 18th month. Let's go to the Cape Cod Commission and let's really sort this out before we lose this community. And it all has to do with that plan identified. It's the land value. It's the money. We have to get a rein on this or we're going to lose our historic. Sorry, thank you for the indulgence of the time. Thank you.
Thank you. And you wrote an excellent letter covering much of that, and I appreciated that. I when I recognized you to speak, I knew some of what you would say you said. I want to respond quickly and then offer a chance to others to speak who I know are waiting. What you spoke to about the 2010 local comprehensive plan and the 2010 historic preservation plan, wherein it identified numerous districts in the town that were needing preservation protection beyond simply being designated as National Register districts. It's 100% accurate. We're grateful for the Old Kings Highway Act, which is a state act which provided Old Kings Highway preservation protection and committees in each of the towns in each of the districts back starting in 1973. We have other districts in the town of Barnstable, but not many, that are protected in a similar way. You mentioned the Harbor Waterfront Historic District. That's certainly one. You're correct. And I was going to almost wrap up with that you mentioned and say what's lacking in this process is tools for a commission such as ours, or more particularly a historic district committee specific to Hyannisport as a National Register district, to hear the whole panoply of subject matter that typically would come before a historic district committee but cannot come before us, nor can we rule on it because we are really only with our nose in the tent through the process of a demolition delay ordinance and really nothing else. And that ties our hands. I'm a passionate preservationist myself. I wouldn't be crazy enough to try and do this job, which I do marginally well maybe anyway, but without having that passion to begin with. I mentioned that I'm pretty connected with the port to begin with also, and that's also true. I moved back to Barnstable Village a couple of years ago just because I really like Barnstable Village, and 6A is a big part of that. I want you to know the sincerity through all of the commissioners here on these matters. I don't feel we have the capacity or the authority to invoke personally either the demolition delay ordinance or referral to the commission in this instance, but I can tell you on the grounds that you stated, and that I think I just reflected a little bit, I kind of wish we did. More to the point, I wish we had an alternative to that process at all, that we could address these matters more proactively than reactively, and have something that was more able to address the coalescence of a community like Hyannisport, which has always had people thinking in a common way about many things, and this is just one additional example. So I'm off my soapbox too, but I just want you to know there's room for much improvement. I hope the town will take up the charge, and I definitely suggest speaking to your counselor. Okay. um, to the lady and gentleman in the upper corner, I see just an abbreviation, but you've been waiting patiently. I believe you're the Floyds, am I right?
I'm technologically challenged.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. We're Frank and Penny Floyd. We live next door to the property that's under discussion. Let me first say that, Mr. Chairman, and also the commissioners, I have a particular insight to how hard your job is because I sit on a historical commission in the Western Reserve of Ohio. I take it personally to preserve the culture, and it's hard to put it on paper. Therefore, we have to work with our hearts. And that's what you're hearing today. I can honestly say at 72 years old, I don't think I've ever heard letters that are as well written for a cause than I just heard read in front of this commission. It's because we care deeply about our community. And it's hard to put that into words too. I'm frustrated, Mr. Chairman, because I hear you say, I wish we had alternatives. I'm frustrated when I hear legal counsel say, legal counsel say, this is not a substantial alteration. I'm frustrated when I hear these are simply adjustments. This is a change of a lifestyle that we're talking about. This is a New England community, and I speak for myself and hopefully for my bride, that we are not going to be pleased and we are not going to be supportive because you're changing our lifestyle. We see a lot of money coming into our community and buying property, and to justify that, they're building from property line to property line. There was a comparison to Chris Page's building. It's a large building, but that was built on top of the Stoneleigh Gables Hotel. And I must say, it is a beautiful example of New England architecture. I don't believe that this current design is in the same category of that. I don't think it exemplifies New England architecture, and it's in a very, very prominent position if you look at the pictures from the dock. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm very frustrated, and I hope the commission, I know the owners are within their legal rights. That has been discussed, and it's been pointed out to us in many ways. We're not happy with the way that we learned about this project. Someone mentioned, I think it was Ms. Shoemaker last time, that said, we hope the neighbors can be neighborly. Well, we don't learn about developments next door through legal counsel if you want to be a neighbor. We just wish we had been involved in the process. I'm going to stop there. Mr. Chairman, by your statement of no alternative, and in the last project in the agenda, when the commissioner said, this project no longer exemplifies a historic house, and please don't put a plaque on it. That's not preserving our culture.
I agree.
So I'll send with, and so therefore I would hope, and I would support an 18-month delay on this project. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Floyd. Ms. Holmes. Hi. You're still muted.
Okay. Hi. Okay. First of all, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm a little bit nervous because I don't like speaking in front of crowds, and I don't do Zoom calls and all that stuff. But so I'm going to push myself because this is very important. what the last two speakers said, I completely agree with, and I'm not starting with what I have written to start with, but I did want to say that the 2 points about these proposals get pushed in off season and nobody seems to know about them, and then you come back in the summer and construction is started and you're stuck. You're like, holy, what just happened? Like, you have had no voice, no opportunity to weigh in or even understand what's going on. In the letter that I wrote, I did reference living across from I'm on Scudder in the heart of what as people come in through the port, and they're across the street. So between Wachusett and Irving, there was a captaincy home and another historic home that were bought by the same developer, who did buy them out and built these monstrosities. They do come to the edge of the zoning lines, and there's no property left, and all of the indigenous every piece of foliage was ripped out, every tree, every bush, every piece of grass, everything. I'm not kidding. I watched it. It was during COVID. That was another piece of it. It sort of all slipped in during COVID. So what is there now are these massive houses. One of them does look like a hotel. They're surrounded by plastic fencing. They have had manicured, stylized landscaping put in with a lot of non-native plants. The hydrangeas, which people love on the Cape, I get, but there are tons of hydrangeas and they're terrible with water, yada yada yada. Okay, so I'm very sensitive to this because it's and this isn't the people keep talking about like, oh yeah, because I've read some of these letters, that this is a precedent, but it's not a precedent. The precedent has been set, and I think what we need to do now is slow down and be careful to maybe contain a train that feels like it's starting to run away, like it is running away. And I could reference a couple other buildings, but remodels that I won't. So what I wanted to say, what I had written some notes on were, there was a note, 80% of the existing house is being preserved. Is that correct? Did you say that? I think so. I don't know if I can hear you while I'm talking, but anyway,
Yes.
that's what. Oh, yeah. Is that right? It was 80% preservation of the existing historic home?
Correct. The first, it varies per level, but by and large, the average is 80% of the house. And the areas where there is demolition is the intervention of the addition.
Okay, well, so that's a 20% loss of a historic home. Is that not significant? I guess that's a question. And then I think that the way that the proposers are positioning this is kind of, it's a little manipulative. So that's one thing, but what about the new buildings? What percentage of the whole project is the new buildings? And the new buildings are the focus and the thing. No one has mentioned the pool. There's a pool in the front yard. This yard overlooks the harbor. It's right next to the pier. This is where the majority of the activity in Hyannisport happens. I don't want to be walking around there sailing my boat or whatever I'm doing. I'm watching people swim in their pool. Like that is a suburban concept. That's the Hamptons. I don't know what that is, but that's not Hyannisport, okay? And I'm gonna say this, and I'm sorry, but it's obnoxious, okay? It just is. It's not an old value system. Who does that in a community like Hyannisport? Okay. So there was a point that that Betty had made about the percentage of the use of the lot that was your front end, apples to apples to apples. That is not apples to apples, I would say. The way that house is positioned is leveraging the lot parallel to the street with those two towering additions. It's kind of dominant. It dominates the street, it dominates the harbor, dominates the neighbors. It's aggressive, in my opinion. It's a stamp, hey, we're here. Also, nobody else has mentioned to me, I haven't heard anything really about the garage. I think maybe Betty did. It's a 2-car garage? What? Like, that doesn't make sense. That's, again, it is not Hyannisport. It's not in keeping with the historic ethos, the aesthetic, the way people live their lives there. I don't know how big the driveway is, but it looks like there's tons of parking going on in there. And it gives it the opportunity to be a kind of, it's a little bit of a palace. It's like its own little castle in the middle of what should be a very charming, quiet street. So, and then I had one more thing, and again, I'm nervous, and I'm sorry if I'm not being incredibly articulate, but I just find this very interesting that the Historic Commission gave that woman before us so much pushback. And I'm glad they did, because I agree. Like, I thought that house was, not a historic renovation, but whatever. And yet here everyone's sort of applauding this proposal, and it just seems like, it's like all thumbs up, and it surprises me. I'm shocked. I don't understand it. I'm confused. So that's me. Thank you for listening. I hope I made some sense, and I would argue strongly to hold off for 18 months so we could have a look at what these new proposals are and kind of evaluate it in a more in a slower, more critical, non rushed manner. Like, I don't, everyone has their side, and I'd like to see what this really, really looks like and what it means. So I would strongly urge quieting it down and not pushing it through right now. So, okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You did fine, by the way. All right. Is anyone else hoping to speak to this? Because we're getting pretty late in the hour here, and I want to be careful. We have one more hearing to go. I'm hoping we don't lose the room, as they say. I don't believe we will, but someone may alert me if that's getting scary. I don't see any other hands up. I see Michael Ford with his hand up, and I'm not surprised. And sir, you're welcome to respond, sir. Go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. First, with respect to the previous speaker, there are a number of pools in Hyannisport. There's at least 5 or 6 on waterfront properties. It's not a new item in Hyannisport. With respect to the existing house, it's wrapped in plastic. If anybody's gone out there and looked at it, the entire house is vinyl. All of that is coming off, and we are restoring the original historic house that was there. So anyone who's really taken a deep dive into the plans and realizes that the 80% we're taking off are the non-historical pieces of this house that currently exist. But it is wrapped in plastic. And I think the committee knows that. They went out, they looked at it. This house, unfortunately, was not treated the way it should have been over the years. And the current owners have done a lot of work, spent a lot of time and big investment in architects and research in trying to build back the original house and put it in a spot on the lot that makes sense. So I'm not going to cover it more than that, because I think the chairman has already noted what the limits of the committee's inquiry and determination is, and I agree with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Attorney Ford. Very briefly to the Floyds. Mrs. Floyd, please.
Okay.
Briefly.
I absolutely agree that what you're doing to the house, you are bringing it back, because I know Patrick Ahern is a wonderful architect and is doing that. However, I want to know, you didn't include what the square footage is of the garage apartment, or the pool house. That all becomes what we are considering a 9,000 square foot house. The house itself will be beautiful because you're keeping it as the house was intended. It's the pool house, the garage. And I think that's where people are coming back and saying, that's too much for this piece of property. That does not fit into the historic residence of Hyannisport. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Holmes, really briefly. Sure, you need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, I will. All right. So did I do it? Yeah. So yes, that is so accurate. It's so accurate, and that's why I feel like there is duplicity in the what is being presented versus what is reality. And back to the pool. Yeah, there are pools in Hyannisport. You don't see them though. You're sure they're waterfront pools, but they're very private. They're inside properties that nobody passes by. So this pool is very different. Pool house, all of that stuff she just said. So, but I just wanted to make to Mr. Ford, I just wanted to say, yeah, you are technically right, but it's not the same. So, if anyone could understand that, great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we're going to say that we've had our public comment for the most part at this present time, and I appreciate everyone's sentiments and passion and detail. Any commissioners' responses to public comment specifically? Nancy, anything you wish to say before we go forward here?
No.
Okay, that's all right. No, I just want to be straight and fair. Jack, anything you have in mind that you feel any differently about hearing public comments or any responses to that?
Yeah, I'm sensitive to a lot of what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I'm a preservationist at heart. I've spent my whole life doing this. To unwrap that house and put back the original materials would make that house glorious. I share some of the issues about the garage and the pool. I'm personally a little surprised that if the garage and pool have been included in the 9,000 square feet, then that may be something to deal with individually because the house is the house. But like you said before, views and things outside of the beauty of the home, the heart of the property is the home. If we have an issue with garages and pools and things like that, we have to be very careful that we're now not talking about a historic thing. We're talking about an addition that's it's a modern structure. It's not part of the soul of the original effort. So I'm conflicted a little bit with that. I don't want to punish the house. The house losing its plastic clothes and gaining historical materials is a joy for me personally. And I don't take offense to the new design of the house. If the issues for these folks has boiled down to some of the antithesis that's going on here with other buildings, I can sympathize with that. One of the things that is a little disappointing for me about the process that we are following here is I would like to really know what the building itself would represent in square footage versus its old and its new footprint. But the 18-month delay, unless have been led to believe that I'm wrong, is at the end of the 18 months, these people are free to do whatever they want. The 18 month does not stop the obvious. So if we think that the 18-month delay is going to mean that we're all going to be productive in working together as a mob on this thing, that may not be very viable. So I just want folks to know that our hands are very uniquely tied. That it's a hard place we're in, especially to hear all of these good people that live this every day and have history here. So that's where I am on this, and maybe I'm just adding to what you said, is that we are really hamstrung in a corner here. But I just want to be fair to the work that these gentlemen have gone through, and I'm a little personally attached to the efforts that they have to do. And I think the work has been done to validate that there are improvements to repositioning this home. And the repositioning of the home, I think, is a good thing. I like what they're thinking about doing, and I would I would agree with it. If the other additions to the property are the big issue, perhaps they should think about putting this into one more month of discussion among themselves and not have an ending to it today, and let them consider those factors. That's strictly up to the soul of the whole group.
Thank you, Jack. I share a number of those thoughts and ideas myself as well. I just want to respond to that quickly, and then John, I want to catch up with you and Barbara as well. Everything we're talking about is screaming for an actual historic district in Hyannisport. I just want to go right back there and say, because our demolition delay ordinance simply does not have the ability to produce any of the results, candidly, that you all wish for, I think, from what I'm hearing. A historic district would in two ways. One, it would address something as a matter of what's brought forward for an application and process, and the other is by virtue of its very existence and the promulgation and publishing of its rules and regulations, it tends to prevent acquisition of property by unrealistic or uninformed or naive or whatever you want to call it, owners who just don't understand what they're getting into. It's a different story for, say, I heard someone refer to the previous applicant. Her situation's different. I mean, it's a family home, and I understand that. And I want to be sure that we respect people's personal rights to do the things with their own homes that they choose to do. But I do believe, and I've lived in the North Side Old Kings Highway Historic District twice over the years, people move in and out of places like that by choice, and they usually do it with their eyes open. And when they don't, there are repercussions. But if it's a historic district, it's under a better level of management and control than we have available to us now. John, what thoughts have you, sir? Anything in particular?
Well, unfortunately, yes. A little bit of a soapbox, for which I apologize, but I'll try to be brief. When we're faced with this amount of wealth, you cannot control what it does. You can aggravate them, you can prod them into a revenge project, but you cannot stop them. After 18 months, they can do whatever they please. They could put a replica of the Disneyland Palace on that lot, and there's nothing you could do. This is at least a good faith effort. And I just, in one little addition, many years ago, there was a guy in another part of town who went higher than the zoning allowed by a story. And my father knew him, and he said, "How do you think you're going to get away with that?" And he said, "It's very simple. I have more money than the town does." And that's the perspective and the reality that we're seeing across the Cape. That's it.
It happens, no question. I think the part of that I want to hang my hat on is the Disney World Palace possibility. I mean, at least we do have some measure of control / a conversation that's correct and realistic here, and I think that's been appreciated by the applicants and their staff, at least in terms of the compliance with those kinds of standards that we've seen, and I appreciate that. Barbara, do you have any thoughts on this that you want to share with the group before we move forward?
I guess one thought, and that is, I know we've skirted around the issue of referring the property to the Cape Cod Commission. What are the pros and cons of that?
Well, the only pro I can think of, it's not a delay tactic, and I would not want to use it for that. It would be if we felt the deleterious effect to the asset that is historic on this property were significant enough to warrant a Cape Cod Commission review, we would refer it to the Cape Cod Commission. I personally don't think we're there, and I think one of the reasons I don't think we're there is because correctly the applicants went to the Cape Cod Commission before they came to us.
Right.
And they've been responsive to all of the types of advice that they would get there, and in a lot of ways have essentially shortened the effective timeline that might require. for the most part, productively. And I agree with Jack. I think that a number of the improvements to the historic part of this building and property are real and are valid. It's unfortunate that the other components are as substantial as they are, but they're not alterations themselves to the historic building in the same way. And I don't think that we would obtain much from that. I raised the issue of maybe a referral to the commission only as a hypothetical earlier because I wanted to explore the context of what it would mean to get an opinion specifically limited to the impact on the community around it, and not the community's feelings about it. Mind you, I appreciate them and I respect them, but that's not what either our commission or the Cape Cod Commission can respond to. It would be more about the integrity of the historic buildings in the manner with which integrity is typically, and their significance is interpreted, say, is by the National Park Service or the Secretary of the Interior Standards. I don't think we'll gain anything from that in this context. I really don't. So that's just my personal advice. Each of you.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate it. It's
Thank
just
you, Nancy.
seems,
Yeah,
we
sorry.
seem to be between a rock and a hard place on this.
Yeah, well, we kind of are. Just one sec, Michael. You're welcome in a sec. I just want to give Nancy Shoemaker a chance.
Absolutely, I understand.
Yeah, we have to realize that what we can do and what our power is to decide whether someone can demolish something or not. And we can give, as we did at the last person coming up to us hearing, we can suggest, and very often people take our suggestions, and that makes me happy. But we are not here to tell people, and we cannot be. That's the building department. We cannot tell people what color they can make their house. We can suggest. So, and again, if after the 18 months, there's nothing but complete demolishment of every bit of that house and that property is very, very possible. So you're dealing with, and this is all that we can do as the Historical Commission. We try to save houses. We try to please the neighbors. It's not being unfair. It's part of the law that only the properties around touching that property are to be notified. And we've never had someone complain that 225 houses haven't been notified before. And it's just not in the rules. You can go to the town and start trying to create some new rules, but this is not the time to do that. You have to go to the town.
Thank you, Nancy. Attorney Ford, sorry, I didn't mean to short stop you there.
No. I realize you've already given me an opportunity. I just wanted to make sure that Mr. K knew, and maybe you bring up the sketch that we had to show you what the changes were, but there is no pool house here. One previous speaker said, oh, there's a pool house, and there's no pool house. And if you bring that sketch up, you'll see that the two additions are the garage addition with a little connector, and then the addition of the wing to the north, which is not large. We've gone from 30-something hundred square feet to 4,800 square feet for a footprint. And you asked specifically what that was. It's in the record. And that's what it is, and that counts. It counts the garage, and it counts the other addition. So I wanted you to be aware of that before you took your vote. So,
Mike, could I reiterate that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. I mean, if you...
Yes.
Sure.
So I just wanted to make it clear. So that footprint, the adjusted footprint that we're showing you, includes the garage. So that 4835 includes the garage. It's not just the house. The 5117 is the square footage of living space. Again, going back to a realtor, they don't count the basements, they don't count the garage for living space. When you're actually living in the house, you're not living in your garage, and that's what we're talking about. So we did take into account the footprint of the garage included in the development of the site. And the pool itself is 375 square feet. Again, you don't live in the pool, but that's the extent and size of it. It's a small pool. It's tucked away. It's behind the 100-foot conservation line, so it's a matter of right. And I just wanted to get those clarification points out.
Thank you, Patrick. We're going to wrap up the comment here in a sec. I see Betty Lucci, you have your hand up. You're welcome to speak, but please keep it brief, all right? Because we need to move on to a vote.
Yes, thank you. I just was wondering, based on the conversations and based on a degree of confusion, maybe on all sides, that a continuation might be warranted. I think you've done a really good conversation about the 18-month delay, and someone had mentioned, I think it was Jack, that maybe a second continuation, just to give a little more. There just seems to be confusion and unanswered questions right now, and it seems to me they haven't gone to the Board of Health yet, based on the movement of the septic system. I don't know if the Conservation Commission is going to be included in this based on the runoff that goes right into Fortis Beach. I just think if you could just give one more continuation, or you could consider it. Thank you.
Well, let me just say, we receive one, we don't give one. It is something that needs to be requested by the applicants, and they need to understand in some manner to achieve a recognition that that's in their interest to do that. And I don't know that we have a way to say that, but I want to offer, maybe if the applicants feel there's something to be gained by continuing for another month, we can do that. I just don't know whether we'll be in a different place then or not. But before, Attorney Ford, I will let you answer that. I see Nancy Shoemaker's hand up. Nancy, what would you like to say?
Oh.
No? Okay, Attorney Ford. Do you have a sense of where you are with that and the applicants?
Yes, yes, I do. And thank you for letting me respond to it. The commission made that request the last time. We didn't feel we necessarily needed a continuance last time, but out of respect for the commission's request, we said yes, absolutely. And so we had a difficult time reaching out to the neighbors. Nobody's around this time of year. We had difficulty getting email addresses, but we finally were able to send a request to your staff, who sent it out to those people because she didn't want to give out their email addresses, and I respected that. And we finally got a way to communicate with people, and we had a good meeting. And I have to tell you that I think we listened, and we spent a lot of time, and architects' time, making those suggested changes that we have before you, which we would offer as part of any approved plan, and a willingness to amend the final plans and put them in. But frankly, given the fact that the overall concern of the neighbors in the meeting was their view, and we worked hard to try to improve that with the adjustment. There was no legal requirement to, but we did. I don't think another a continuance where view is really the issue is going to make a difference here. I think the applicant's done a great job trying to figure out what they needed to meet, save the house. As Commissioner Kay has indicated, that's what we're doing. That's what's driven us. There's a small addition to the right, and there's the garage to the left. There is no pool house. This is not, when you look at the rest of the neighborhood, a large house. There are many larger houses in this immediate neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Ford. I appreciate that. I see hands up in different places. We're going to stop soon, but Mr. Clark, you haven't spoken. I see you down there with your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on. Thank you. I just want to follow up on Attorney Ford's last comment on the meeting with the abutters, which was really helpful, and it was very nice that they arranged for that. I'd just point out that the view component was added kind of as a last recommended action item. I don't think it represented a group consensus. I mean, there were a lot of concerns that talked about the historical nature of the placement of the houses, other projects and abutting houses that have gone through renovations and kept within their original footprint. I think in most abutters' opinions, that more in keeping with the traditional setting of the homes in Hyannisport. So I think to just limit it as a meeting of abutters that were concerned about their views is not necessarily accurate.
Okay, thank you for your comments, sir.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Jack, did you have one last really quick thing? I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that the 9,000 square foot has come up so often if it's not accurate. If it's an accurate fact that the footprint of this building is only 4,800 feet, then where did the 9,000 that we're hearing from so many people where did it come from?
I don't have an answer for that, or
Mr. K, if I could respond, it was in a letter in opposition that described it as a 9,000 square foot house.
yeah, agreed. I agree with Attorney
That's where it came
but I don't
from.
know where that came from.
It has no basis in fact that I'm aware of, Mr. K.
Thank you. It didn't make any sense to me that we had a 4,800 square foot footprint and a 9,000 square foot house unless it's 4 stories tall. So I don't know where we're going with that.
So I believe we're at a point where we should be closing the public hearing and moving on to a vote. I want to say before we go to that, I personally, and I would bet at least 1 or 2 other commissioners would be willing to follow along with us, though I won't speak for them because we haven't spoken about it, but I would be more than willing to meet with the Hyannisport Civic Association or community organized group in the port, with your town councilor, or as a group in some fashion in the future, to try and see if there's a way to move towards a more proactive, reactive, capable historic district. But it's going to take time to do something like that. It is rare to have people requesting such a thing, seeking such a thing. It's more often a tough sell, often led by preservationists trying to interest a neighborhood in becoming a district that has a formalized set of regulations. And it's frankly refreshing, despite the circumstances, which are difficult for all of you, that have brought it about. But it's one of those carpe diem kinds of moments where, maybe we should work hard together to try and make something from this that is helpful in the future, regardless of where this particularly lands. Betty Ludke, your comment, and then we need to go.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo what Mr. Clark said. I believe Attorney Ford mischaracterized the preponderance of the opinions, and I believe there's been some new voices as Cory Pacheco read in some new letters. Us non-abutters, again, were recently apprised of this situation, and I think that does merit consideration on behalf of Attorney Ford to perhaps bring in some of these new voices and allow for one more continuation for some of the things that have been raised today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to assume that the applicant has, had their say on that, and I understand that. My Attorney Ford, if you disagree with me, please jump in and let me know. But I think we're understanding that's not an option at this point from your perspective, and I'm okay.
No disagreement. I think the applicants would like to move on at this point.
Understood. Thank you, sir. All righty. With that, I'd like to ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing. Nancy Shoemaker.
Thank you, Nancy. And a second on that, please? Do I have a commissioner with a second?
I second.
Thank you very much, John. Nancy Shoemaker.
Aye.
Jack Kay.
Aye.
Barbara DiBiase.
Aye.
John Richmond.
Aye.
And Robert Frazee. Aye. The public hearing is closed, and it is time to move to a vote on motions. Let's get the proper one in front of me. There we are. All righty. Barbara, you did an awesome job before. Would you be willing to do that again?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
This is the motion for John Duane and Catherine Friedman, trustees, 43 INO Road, Hyannisport, map 287, parcel 074, built 1880, contributing structure within the Hyannisport National Register. The motion is for partial demolition, existing dwelling to be raised and set on new foundation and renovated to preserve original portions. Construct new additions, including an attached garage, update windows, roof, and siding, full demolition of the existing detached garage built in 1935. Motion 1, I move after review and consideration of public testimony, the application and associated materials of the significant building 43 INO Road, Hyannisport is a preferably preserved significant building.
I'll second the motion, Nancy Shoemaker.
Thank you, Nancy. An aye vote would impose an 18-month delay. A nay vote would not impose an 18-month delay. And we use a roll call vote. Nancy Shoemaker.
Aye.
Are you sure that's what you meant?
No. No.
I'm not trying to correct you, but
Nay.
we often trip over the way these things
No,
are.
I do. Nay, I do not vote to impose one. I vote to not impose an 18-month delay.
Thank you. Jack Kay.
Nay.
Thank you. Barbara DiBiase.
Nay.
Thank you, Barbara. John Richmond.
Nay.
And Robert Frazee, nay. So we move to the second motion. If motion one fails, Barbara, please.
If motion one fails with a nay vote, I move that in accordance with section 112-3F, the Barnstable Historical Commission determines that the full demolition of the building located 43 INO Avenue, Hyannisport is not detrimental to the historical, cultural, and architectural heritage or resources of the town.
I have one thing here to say that it's not a full demolition.
Right.
So that was given to us wrong by the town, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Partial.
So
Partial.
will you accept that as an amendment to your motion, Barbara, that it would be a partial demolition, not a full one?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And a second for the amended motion then?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jack. An aye vote determines that the full demolition of the single-family structure is not, we're still in full demolition, I beg your pardon. The partial demolition of the single-family structure is not detrimental, is not, no demolition delay imposed. I'm getting a little rabbled here. So a roll call vote. Nancy Shoemaker.
Aye.
Jack Kay.
Aye.
Barbara DiBiase.
Aye.
John Richmond.
Aye.
Robert Frazee, aye. So there will be no demolition delay. Attorney Ford, one of the two objectives that you named early on in this process was to also ascertain that we would not pursue a referral to the Cape Cod Commission. I don't believe we have a formal motion prepared to that extent. Is it necessary for you to have that process occur that way? I mean, we could probably oblige you if so, but
yes, yes, it is. We did apply for that, and it's on your application form. Since we are in the National Register District, I think that's a requirement.
No, that's fine. So what I would say then, the chair would entertain a motion, please, from another commissioner, which simply moves that the Barnstable Historical Commission agrees that it shall not pursue a referral to the Cape Cod Commission for the property at 43 INO Avenue, Hyannisport, map 287, parcel 074, built 1880, as proposed by the current applicant. Would someone, I know you don't have that written down to look at, but could you please make that motion and we'll second it and we'll vote that?
I'll second that, Jack.
I'm not sure I can make the motion as chair. I think
the motion.
Thank you. So John Richmond makes the motion. Jack Kay seconds it. I appreciate that, gentlemen. So this is on the matter of non-referral to the Cape Cod Commission. An aye vote is affirming that we shall not refer it, just to be clear. Nancy Shoemaker.
Aye.
Jack Kay.
Aye.
Excuse me.
Barbara DiBiase.
Aye.
John Richmond.
Aye.
And Robert Frazee, aye. So I believe that meets your needs.
Yes,
Attorney
thank you,
Ford,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all of you, everyone here and anybody who had to drop out or pass out in the long process. I appreciate your patience, your forbearance, your passion. Somewhere along the way here, we're going to end up all on the same team, but I will reiterate my offer to meet with you as a group at some time or individually if that's necessary in the port to try and promote a district there, or townwide, see if we can revisit this whole master plan concept where we should have better protection for the named and existing districts, which are simply national registered districts. It's a shame that we don't. All righty, so thank you very much. We have one other hearing, which is a new hearing.
Yes, Chairman.
Yes, yes, Attorney Ford.
I said thank you.
I'm sorry, beg your pardon. You're very welcome. Thank you, sir. Corey, are we okay on our time here? Is there anything I need to know about that I'm going to be terrified to hear? Are we in good shape? I mean, I know it's later than it's meant to be, but I'm hoping we can continue at least.
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay, thank you. And my apologies to anybody who's stuck either in this room or in the back room. So the next is a new application, and I want to note a correction in the verbiage in the application. We had the two first names incorrectly printed in the agenda. This is for Jesse and Sharon Hurley, 874 Main Street, Katuitt, map 035, parcel 086, build 1800, full demolition of guest cottage, rebuild with a 13 by 10 one-story addition and a 14 by 13 foot porch. We do not have a public hearing open yet, so I would entertain a motion to open a hearing, please.
I move that we open a public hearing. Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. And a second on that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Barbara. So it's been moved and seconded. Nancy, in favor?
Aye. Yes.
And Jack Kay? Uh-oh, did we lose Jack Kay? We need to find another commissioner here.
Oh, Jack's there.
There he is. Jack, I'm sorry. Jack, we're opening a public hearing. I need a vote. Aye? You're muted.
Aye.
Thank you very much, sir.
Forgive me.
Barbara DiBiase.
I'm sorry, what am I responding to?
Voting on opening the public hearing.
Yes.
Thank
Aye.
you very much. John Richmond, is John here still?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, John. Oh, good man. You're in a dark shade of color. I don't see you as quickly as I do otherwise. Robert Frazee, aye. So we are in a public hearing. Thank you very much. We do have the Hurleys here and others to represent the proponents of the project, please.
Yep.
Make yourselves present and known.
I'm Peter Pametti. I'm the designer and representing Jesse and Sharon Hurley.
Thank you. Greetings.
One thing, by the way, when you were given the description, you said a 14 by 13 porch. It's actually a 4 foot by 13.
I beg your pardon. And it's printed as 4 by 13. You're quite correct. I appreciate the correction.
So I think I'm still awake.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Those were two difficult subjects.
They were.
Especially the second one.
I wish I could have been first. But anyway.
I wish you could have too.
So this building, it has a date of 1800, but there is no actual record of it, as to what it looked like or, what was really the original structure. From looking at it and doing lots of observations, if you look at the existing plans, the part which I think was the original structure was the part that in plan is showing the living room, the bathroom, and a kitchen.
Yeah.
I'm sure without the deck. That part of the building is basically decomposing. It has no foundation. There's a couple of photographs showing the problems that we're having, that the owners are having with it. We've had contractors in to look at it. The floor system is pretty much rotted out and rotting out, and to be able to rebuild it in place, you'd have to lift the structure up, but at the same time cut the floor away, and then we want to re-side it, re-roof it, and remove the sliding glass door, which I'm sure was not part of the historic structure. So because it's going to really be a brand new structure when it's rebuilt, we'd like to be able to tear it down and duplicate it, and at the same time add a small addition to the rear of the building and a small front porch to the front of the building.
Okay.
Because it's just, I mean, we're going to rebuild the whole thing anyway, and it's actually going to be about, it's going to be much easier to tear it down to rebuild it, because we're going to have to replace the floor anyway. The studs are rotted at where it meets the floor. The building is sagging, and that's kind of the reason why we're requesting to be able to tear it down to rebuild it.
I appreciate that. I was, along with Vice Chair Nancy Shoemaker, involved in determining whether or not it was necessary to bring you to a hearing, and I apologize for the long wait being heard here today, but I do want to just mention that our reasoning was that we had read the Form B inventory form for the primary building on the property, which is extensive in its reportage and clearly a significant structure. And we were apprehensive when we heard about a full demolition for a building on that same property circa 1800, and wanted to explore with you as the applicants, what was involved, what do we think we know about the history of the 1800 building, and does it relate to the parent or older building, or excuse me, larger building on the property, and if so, is there a matter of significance here that's historically significant, perhaps not architecturally significant, that needs to be addressed? And it may or may not be the case that is so, but I was hoping we might hear any opinion that you or the applicants have.
You really can't find anything. I even went back and spoke to the previous owner before Jesse and Sharon bought it. Whatever work had been done, like adding the little kitchen, which is definitely not, it's not an historic portion.
No, I'm sure.
Adding the sliders, adding all of that was all done by the previous, and then I think it might have even been done by another. The only date that I could show for any work being done was 1989, which I'm assuming was when they kind of added on which is now the bedroom wing, and added, probably put the slider in, added the deck, and kind of tied the two structures together. I was actually the designer for the main house and brought it through historic, and also built the addition.
So you've been through the Form B subject before.
Excuse me?
You've been through the Form B subject before then.
I think this is my 30th time in front of Historic Commission just in Katuitt.
Oh my, okay, good
And
for
so,
you.
and I've only torn down one building prior to this. And honestly, I think in tearing it down, I'm going to rebuild it better than it is now, because there isn't really anything historic about the building other than the fact that somebody said it was historic.
Well, we were unable to document it any further, as far as I know, as well. And I'm not trying to hold your feet to the fire on that.
No, that's fine, because I tried. I did.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One question we typically ask when there's a full tear down or demolition involved is whether there are any historic materials involved in the building that could possibly live a future life, because we all know that first growth or even old growth materials are vastly superior, even if they've been used one or two times, to a lot of modern things. And I don't mean for you necessarily to be obliged to reuse them, but possibly they could be reclaimed in the demolition process if warranted. And we would, maybe see if we can find a repository or someone willing to inventory materials of that kind for future construction use. And I'm thinking of the Protect Our Past group in Chatham, which has a preservation architect who is interested in that. How far along they'll go, I don't know, but I just want to make sure we broach the topic with you.
Well, actually, there was in the what we're assuming is the historic structure, there are some cross ties that have been exposed that I don't think were exposed in the original building. And Sharon and Jesse Hurley have both said that they would like to be able to utilize some of that when we rebuild.
Oh, great. Good. Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any thoughts on this that I didn't already jump in on or express in some way?
I have a question. Does this structure have any form of foundation?
Barely. The new part does. The part which I think was the addition that was added in 1989 has a concrete block foundation. The old part has some concrete block, but as you can see in that one photograph that I showed of the corner, I mean, there are literally some blocks that were stuck in to kind of hold it up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
So
it's a failing foundation.
It's resting on them individually more than as an assembly with mortar and all that, by the sound of it then.
Correct. Although,
Yeah.
I mean, there is a portion that had some, I'm not sure if it was added at another point, but there's no way, it's not on a stone foundation. It's not like
Okay.
it was part of, which I'm assuming if it was built in 1800 was a stone foundation. And,
Yeah, more than likely.
you know, and the house that I did, not only did the design work on, but at the time I was still building, that had a stone foundation, and we preserved a lot, all of it actually.
Makes sense. Jack, does that help?
Yeah, well, I certainly don't want to be impertinent about this, but this particular structure, just the design of it, almost makes you feel like its original intent was a storage shed. And not a residence. Not a residence.
It wouldn't. Oh, I don't think it was a residence at one. I think someone turned it into a little guest cottage at some point. Like I said, the part that you're looking at right there in that photograph, I'm pretty sure that was an addition that was added on in 1989.
Yeah.
The original.
It could have been an ice house.
What's that?
I said it could have been an ice house.
It could have been an ice house. I think.
All right, that was my only question, is that we're not. This doesn't appear to be a treasure.
No.
No, I would agree with that.
Is this the only guest house on the property?
Yes. Yep, and and right now it is a legitimate 1-bedroom, 1-bath guest house, which we're keeping as a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Nancy, or John, do you have anything? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I've been holding off some people for a long time. Can we open the public hearing?
We can, certainly. I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to comment first.
Yeah.
If you had any.
No, I don't have any problem with this, no.
Okay, thank you. John, anything you have in reaction first to the presentation, and we'll open the public, the public hearing is open, and we will open it to the public to speak in a sec.
It all seems reasonable to me, so let's proceed to the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak to this? Well, actually, I don't see anyone. Corey, do you see anyone?
I do not see anybody.
Okay, and I don't believe we have any record of receiving public comment on this either, which, since they're advertised, that's the other thing, is sometimes when you have a project like this, if it does go to a hearing, it is advertised and the abutters letters go out. Sometimes you find out things about 1,800 buildings that you would never learn any other way, and just by the age alone, I apologize again for the long wait, but it's worth the effort. Okay.
No letters have been submitted.
Thank you, Corey. All righty. Well, I would be happy to close the public hearing unless others have, do any commissioners have any other comments they would like to make while the hearing's open?
No.
I think we're good. All right.
We
So could I have a
hearing?
thank you, Nancy Shoemaker, and a second on that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jack. Nancy Shoemaker.
Aye.
Thank you. Jack Kay.
Aye.
Barbara DiBiase.
Aye.
Thank you. John Richmond.
Aye.
Robert Frazee, aye. The public hearing is closed. We go to our motions. Barbara, have I worn you out yet?
Not yet, I got it.
Good for you. Thank you.
Okay, motions and findings. This is for Jesse and Sharon Hurley, and we need to adjust the record appropriately. 874 Main Street, Katuitt, map 035, parcel 086, built 1800. Full demolition of guest cottage, rebuild with a 13 by 10 one-story addition and a 4 by 13 porch. Motion one, I move after review and consideration of public testimony, the application and associated materials, the significant building located at 874 Main Street, Katuitt, is a preferably preserved significant building.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're
Second on the
welcome.
motion?
I'll second that, Nancy Shoemaker.
Thank you, Nancy. So an aye vote will impose an 18-month delay. A nay vote will not impose an 18-month delay. And let's see here. Nancy Shoemaker.
Nay.
Thank you. Jack Kay.
Nay.
Barbara DiBiase. Oh, Barbara, you're frozen. Uh-oh.
We're all frozen.
No, we're not all frozen, but Barbara is.
No, I know.
John, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
Well, we'll skip Barbara for a moment. John?
So I vote nay.
Thank you. And I vote nay as well. If we're not able to recapture Barbara, I don't know if we're working there. Hey, Barbara, welcome back. Sorry, we lost you for a minute there. We just voted. We just all but you voted nay. But how do you vote on the motion that you just read?
Nay, there will not be an 18-month delay.
Thank you very much. So we are unanimous on that. So motion number one did not pass. If you could read us the follow along motion, that would be fabulous.
If motion one fails with a nay vote, I move that in accordance with section 112-3F, the Barnstable Historical Commission determines that the full demolition of the building. Oh, I lost everybody again?
No,
You
we're
there?
here. Yep, we're here. There's a little background noise, but we're good.
Okay, the full demolition of the building located 874 Main Street, Katuitt is not detrimental to the historical, cultural, and architectural heritage or resources of the town.
Thank you. Second on the motion?
I'll second that.
You got the last time.
Give it to
Nancy,
Jack. Give it
you're
to
on
Jack.
for the record. All righty. An aye vote determines that the full demolition of the single-family structure is not detrimental. No demolition delay is imposed. Nancy Shoemaker.
Aye.
Jack Kay.
Aye.
Barbara DiBiase.
Aye.
John Richmond.
Aye.
Robert Frazee. Aye. Sir, thank you
Yes.
very, very much.
Thank you very much.
And
I
Mr. Hurley, thank
appreciate
you
it.
very much as well for your patience with
Thank
all of
you.
that.
All right.
We have a couple of other quick housekeeping things on our agenda that I missed last time, and I will not let myself miss this time, even though the hour is late. I want to say quickly, I'm going to skip over for the moment the discussion of upcoming events. And I'm going to go the easiest one, approval of the minutes from January 21st, 2025. If you have seen them, I hope you have. They were in the packet or in the Laserfiche. Since I was the only one at that meeting, even if you weren't there, I think I'm within my rights to suggest that we could approve them anyway, because it was a meeting at which the last hearing was deferred to today's date. And so that was the business at hand. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 21st, 2025?
So moved.
And a second?
Aye. Yes.
A second. Thank you very much, Nancy. So all in favor of that motion, Nancy Shoemaker.
Aye.
Jack Kay.
Aye.
Barbara DiBiase. Frozen again.
Oh.
John Richmond.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. And Robert Frazee, aye.
Barbara freezes every time we try to
Get a vote. I don't blame her. I would after this much time too. The other thing on here is Katuitt, Katuitt Form B's discussion and review. I want to say that I went through them with care myself, and I made some notes. I mentioned this to Corey on the phone a bit ago.
Chair, point of order. You also have the February 18th, 2025 minutes
I did.
on the agenda as well.
I've got to go. Can you all, we still have enough people here if the four of you are staying. I'm having people
I
over
don't,
here and I haven't.
oh my God, they went to the top of the next page and I didn't see them.
Can I leave the
yes,
meeting?
do we still have enough people? I don't see Barbara here anymore.
I'll stay.
You need 4.
Oh, she's coming back. Or she's not.
Barbara,
Hey,
I'm
Barbara.
gonna suggest that you keep your video off because it will boost your internet use. So turn your video off and it will help you stay on longer.
Oh, that's a great suggestion.
Okay, I have to leave if that's okay. If
Nancy, that's fine. Thank you very much. We can nail this if we're quick. And I apologize, Corey. Thank you for the catch. I didn't see that. Once again, it's a matter of approval of minutes. If I could have a motion to approve the minutes from February 18th, which was our last meeting.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, John. So let's see here. Run the roll call. Barbara, I'm going to start with you this time.
Aye.
Thank you very much. John?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Robert? Aye. The minutes are passed. Thank you. The Forms B are kind of a mixture of forms that have imperfections and some that do not. And I'm reluctant at the moment to suggest that we approve the ones that have at least enough imperfections that I would worry that Mass Historical Commission would reject them out of hand. I want to say that Form B 1058, I would vote nay anyway. It's an 1986 inventory, which is quite old, and it has notes right on it questioning some of the facts that were stated. The notes are handwritten, and I think we ought to straighten that out before we would submit it. I mean, feel free to jump in if any of you disagree, but I'm just going to try and roll through this. Form B 1600, it has some areas crossed out where it has the area and form number and a handwritten different area, different form number, and a handwritten second address. Again, if I were at MHC receiving these to be scanned and recorded, I'd be a little reluctant about that. I'd at least want to get back to us with questions.
I agree.
Okay. B 1645, again, the area map and form number are handwritten with crossouts, and there are other handwritten annotations. Other than that, that particular Form B has excellent information on it. I don't want us to lose track of it, but again, I think it should not proceed to MHC at the moment. Form B 215 has some yellow highlights. I think they're fine. They don't alter the thing at all. It just proves that it was used at some time for information gathering. I don't see that being a matter that would be contested. Form B 304 is a little bit of a red herring. It was turned up not having been submitted by the town to MHC some time ago, but I want to tell you that it is a building that is now on property that is town owned. This is a recent development, and it is potentially going to be demolished if, upon inspection by a structural engineer, determines that it's unsafe and unfit for any entry from a safety standpoint. I have conversed, actually I've talked with David Anthony, the property asset manager, at some length about this. He's very cooperative about it. He's asked us to suggest a historic building friendly engineer if we can find one that would offer at least a second opinion if he has a routine engineer look, because I know and others know frequently it's luck of the draw. If you just draw whoever's available for a structural engineering report, it may come out unfavorably when it needn't entirely. And so in any case, I'm not sure that it is appropriate to approve or send that Form B until some of that matter is resolved, because what we might do is end up sending the Form B with a note attached that the building has been demolished, which is our job or our obligation when we know of such things. I'll let you think about that one for a little bit. Form B 552 has it has one cross out with the area overwritten. I want to say that in correspondence with Phil Odence from Katuitt, who's been very involved in Forms B from the Katuitt area, but is familiar with others for other villages as well, has expressed some confusion over the naming or but attribution of Forms B that is consistent through the town, and he's right to wonder, especially if some of the forms he holds in his hand have these crossouts. But in this case, it seems to me that it's not a significant alteration to matter, and I would suggest an aye vote on that one. Last in the list was B 876. Again, the street number is altered and there are numerous handwritten infills. And I think the problem there is that it's a copy of a copy of a copy. It's not the original, printout. And so some of the letters that were copied were faded, and someone quite carefully went in and wrote them in. It's legible, it's usable, but I wonder if we should see if there's any way to find a nearer first generation copy before submitting it. I don't want to waste everybody's time with this, but Corey, I mentioned to you on the phone, I thought, some of these things may progress towards a hopper in which we want them put on purpose for them to be reviewed by a competent historic preservation consultant who's hired for the purpose with grant funding, along with some other inventory work, which we've discussed for the future, and try and get them done right and move straight on maybe for the next hearing we hold, next meeting in April, another batch. Hopefully we can select a few that are not as marginal and get some that are okay straight up to MHC. So if you guys agree with that strategy, I would appreciate a motion to vote on forms B215, B304, and B552. Did I say 304? I beg your pardon. B215 and B552. I think those are the only two that I would recommend.
What about 1635 Santuit?
Awesome.
You said 1645, that's the Capizzi one.
Yeah.
But the one before that.
1635, okay, I'm sorry. It has a loss of some characters in the left margin, which clearly means, again, it was a photocopy and somebody didn't align it on the platen properly. I don't know if that's sufficient to matter. It does have a few handwritten annotations as well. That could go either way. And good for you, John, for catching that. If you would like to include it with an aye vote, I'm willing on that one. Certainly, I wouldn't object to that. I don't want to obstruct this at all. I want to catch up all on this as best we can. So, So you caught the actual number. What do you feel about that, John?
It sounds to me like under the circumstances, we might as well postpone that as well.
Okay, so we're really just voting on two. It would be B215 and B552.
Yes.
Okay, so would you be willing to just move that we approve forwarding forms B215 and B552 on to the Mass Historical Commission?
I would so move. Do you want me to say it formally?
I think that was probably sufficient, but thank you. Is
I'll
anybody
second
willing to
that
second it?
motion.
Thank you,
Yep,
Barbara.
second it.
Thank you. So, let's see. Jack Kay.
Aye.
Thank you. Barbara.
Aye.
Thank you. John.
Aye.
Robert. Aye. Now, with the last millisecond we have left, does anyone have any historical events or anything of that nature in the upcoming?
I have one thing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Osterville Library on March 29th at 1 p.m. Nancy Rubin Stewart will be there. She will be giving an historical presentation, an author talk about her book, The Muse of the Revolution, The Secret Pen of Mercy Otis Warren, and the Founding of a Nation. There'll
Cool.
also be a book signing there as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else have anything like that?
Just one thing. I have a training tomorrow, a 3-hour training.
I do as well.
Me too.
So I was just curious if anybody else was going.
Yeah, you'll see at least two others. Yeah, it was the only day of the ones that were offered I could possibly do, so I'm signed up for that also. Thank you.
Is it
First one there, save the seats.
I'm sorry?
First one there, save the seats.
Yeah, right. Jack, your question?
It starts at 1, correct?
I believe that's correct,
1 to
yes.
4?
Yes.
I don't know that I know where it is.
I believe it's in the main hearing room at Town Hall. Does that sound correct? Corey's nodding. Yeah, I think so.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, which is easy to find. My last thing before I ask for a motion to adjourn is a reminder that this is the last of our Zoom meetings, and in future, beginning in April, we will be meeting in person again.
Yay!
In the old selectmen's hearing room that we've used in the past, and again, it'll be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's true, but I want to suppose that maybe an in-person hearing, we collectively as a group, I particularly as chairperson, can try and manage a little more effectively than some of these ones on Zooms. And I don't mean that that's the technological issue, although that comes in for each of us at some time or other. I know it would have to be easier for town staff as well. And I think everybody's kind of looking forward to that. So thank you. And thank you for hanging in there today. Motion to adjourn?
Absolutely. Motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Aye.
John, are you in favor of that?
Yes, aye.
Jack, are you in favor of that?
You bet.
Barbara, are you in favor of that?
Absolutely.
I'll have to think. Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Corey, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Sarah,
Bye,
thank you
Corey,
in the
thank
back
you.
room. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
reading those letters. That was.
Thank you, Sarah.
You know, that was
tough.
important for people to hear. I mean, yeah, and Corey, thank you for doing that. I'm glad you didn't get hoarse in the meeting.